Okay, shalom, everybody. Welcome. How's everybody doing? Hopefully you're doing all right. Trying to get the signal going. Hopefully everything will work out fine. Oh, okay. I see what's going on. All righty. Thanks for being on with us. Give me a second. Hopefully everybody doing well out there. The sun is at my back, so lighting will be a little weird. But prayerfully you'll be able to see and hear all right from wherever position you're in. Let's see. Alrighty. Thanks for coming on in. Thanks for being around today. Thanks for spending some time. Thank you to those who are coming from prayer. Getting right back into this series that the system is sus. So it's time for us to be on the move, be on our grind. Hallelujah. Praise Yah for great leadership of environments that we have, such as Minister Shante, Minister Tamara, Minister Anais. We have many more than that, obviously, but those are the three that just blessed us so far this week already with a word or with prayer, making sure that they keep us on track and hold us accountable. So we're thankful to them as well. All right, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. All right, how's everybody doing? Hola, mi nombre es Kofi, ¿cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi, ça va? Ni hao, namaste, osayo, anakitabuya, ohayo, manut. I see you. Habari gani? Jambo mimi ni Kofi, Nina Faraku, Katana Nueva, Aquaba, Etesen. Shalom, Yashlel, Shalom Alat, Sham Yahava, Teda, Yashlel, Barak Alat, Sham Yahava, Barak at Bar, at Bat, at Yashlel, at Servants of Christ. At Kofi, Relative Servants of Christ. Hello, everybody. I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Thankful and grateful to have you guys here again. Thanks for spending some time with us again. We appreciate your presence. We do not take it lightly that you are able to spend some time with us and to bless us with your presence. We can't do what we do without you around the world. We can't do what we do with you, whether you just join us virtually. If you join us virtually for the first time at this one time of many, we appreciate you, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. We appreciate your presence so very much, and we're thankful and grateful to have you on. If you're trying to come on live with us, just kind of let me know who you are in the chat, or maybe talk to me outside the chat, and get in contact with us. Let us know what's going on, and we'll make sure we try to get back in contact with you ASAP. But we appreciate it. We don't know who's coming on what, and to make sure that we protect the environment, I have to know who people are. But thank you for being on. I now got the reverse problem. Usually the sun is in my face, so I have a hard time seeing on the sun's behind, so it's a little difficult to zoom in on what you guys are saying. But thanks for being on. We appreciate you, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or TikTok. How you doing? Minister Shante, Minister Morel, Stephen, MIT, Sabia Larray, Lottie Dottie, and everybody. How you doing, Sage? If I miss your name, charge it to my head and not to my heart. By the way, we have multiple platforms going on, so I'm gonna do my best to try and say hello to everybody, and then we'll get into today. We're still in this series called The System is Sus, and today we're going to talk about Washington, D.C. If we can show you about Washington, D.C., you might be able to find out a little something, something. Some of you know some of what we're going to talk about today, but we're going to get into the Treaty of Paris. We're going to talk about the Treaty of Tripoli. We're going to talk about who George Washington actually is. We're going to talk about who is Columbia. We're going to talk about where in what you call Washington, D.C., that Washington, D.C. actually is as well. So we're going to have some very interesting conversation today. And hopefully you'll learn a little something. And hopefully if you do have questions, comments, or concerns, by the way, feel free to give them, right? But also just realize that there's something that's going on as part of the environment. And maybe some things need to be trimmed or pruned, whatever, right? Like, for example, this is something that I've just started with, right, a little while ago. But this is a rose bush, right, made from a cutting of another rose bush. And if you see on here, there's certain branches, there's certain things that aren't green, there's certain things that are not having life brought to it yet, right? But it doesn't mean that just because it hasn't connected yet, it doesn't mean that it's not going to grow. Like this stuff starting to grow over here was not growing. All this was brown. The only thing that was green was pretty much just this little piece right here. And now you're starting to see life, chlorophyll, magnesium, right, go back into it as it gets sunlight, water, etc. So sometimes, even though you haven't seen it yet, it's connected, but you haven't seen growth into it. You haven't been able to see the stuff that goes to be able to help you to see where things are headed. But it doesn't mean it's not there, right? Like, didn't think these strawberries were going to be able to do much, right? But now they're starting to come in pretty well. And we got a bunch of them stacked on top of each other over here. So you got to be, and there's more stuff over here, etc. But you just got to be careful. So I just want to put that out there. Like, feel free to argue. Feel free to tell me I'm wrong. I don't know anything, this and that, whatever. That's cool. I would just ask that before you get into all that, like, at least see what's connected so that there might be a chance for some magnesium, for some chlorophyll, for you to digest some things that when the sunlight hits it, the sunlight might be hitting something. But if you're not in a position to digest it, if your ears cannot hear, if your heart cannot hear, if their psychology is not correct, if your knowledge about law and stuff is not correct, you'll miss it every time, right? Not trying to talk down to anybody. I'm just trying to say, give me a chance to be able to show you some things that maybe you've never heard of before, okay? Thank y'all for being on. How you doing, Christopher Bain? Thanks for being a part of the community. How you doing, Sister Betty? How you doing, Brother Jaron? I think I missed you, Sister Nadine. If I didn't say hello, please forgive me. How you doing, Sister Mary Edwards? How you doing, user 3661385278584? I think I said that right. Joy to the world. Sister Nadine, Sister Deborah, Truth. And by the way, moderators, thank you in advance. I bow down to you. I appreciate you. Do what you need to do, especially for today, because some people aren't going to like what we're going to talk about today, but we got to give people the truth. We got to talk about Washington, D.C. and get you to comprehend that this system is sus, right? We're going to give you some biblical principles and things as well, but that's how sovereignty works. Sovereignty doesn't work without spirituality. I don't care what guru you're going to. I don't care what that guru's personal belief system is. They will tell you straight up, you got to know about spirituality, right? And prayerfully, I don't know, because I'm not always in this location that I'm in, but prayerfully, I think today might be trash day, so if y'all got to listen to some trash or whatever in the background getting collected, I apologize. As you can see, I'm in the back of the property, whatever. So we got a nice little bit of space back here, but you can see I'm in the alleyway. So please forgive me. Somebody said I'm freezing. Am I freezing for everybody? Am I freezing for everybody? Said there's only one God, Christ, Lord, Jesus of Nazareth. Well, it's too bad that according to even the 1611 King James Version, his name wasn't Jesus. But we do worship the Messiah, and we do want to make sure that we obey what he says. Matter of fact, according to the Bible, according to the people that wrote it, there's no such thing as God. Matter of fact, if you look in your concordance, you'll realize that it's Elohim, not even Elohim, which is a different name, but Elohim. And it's important that you get the difference because, and we'll even talk about that some today, if you want to allow us to get to that. A lot of people don't want to allow us to even get to that. But if you allow us to get to that, you'll be able to see why it's important that you know what God actually means and where it came from, and why you should know what proper interpretation is. Because even Matthew 24, verse 14 tells us that until we have the proper interpretation of what the scripture says, Yahshua cannot come back anyways. But once again, people don't know interpretation. So I want to talk about today about Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. Right? Washington, D.C. Hey, how you doing, Brother Keon? Bruh. We gotta call each other. Hopefully you've been doing well, been praying for you and different things like that. All right, y'all saying that okay, everything's all right. How you doing, Eugene from the D? How you doing, Brother Jermaine? Lottie Dottie, everybody on here, amen. All right. So here we go. So Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. This system is sus is the name of the series. And the system is sus is showing us the system is suspect. Certain things keep going on and on over and over and over again. And as they keep going on over and over and over again, we should probably ask ourselves the question, right? Like, what's going on? Oh, yeah, I see you here. Yeah, that's what I saw. I saw your name pop up. I saw your name pop up. I was just saying it was a long time, and we still in and out of the area. We're gonna be in and out of the area for a little bit anyway. So, we got to make this meetup happen. But hopefully, you'll be doing well. I know last time we talked, you had a lot of things going on in personal life. So I'm glad to see you on, and appreciate your life. Just wanted to say that, right? And hey, how you doing, G, and everybody who's on all the platforms? All right. So this system is sus, and today we're talking about Washington D.C. Let me ask you a question, because everybody talks about the beast, but nobody actually can identify how the beast operates. How you doing, King? Everyone wants to talk about the beast, but a lot of people can't tell you how the beast operates. So let's get into the operation of the beast. The beast, the government, the fallacy, the fate, the corporation, and not the country, the straw man, all this stuff. Let's ask a question. If I were to ask you, what is Washington, D.C., what would you say? If I were to say to you, what is Washington, D.C., what would you say? Come on. Hallelujah. Right. Uh, I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Sorry, y'all. Sorry, y'all. So where was I? Where was I? Where we're at? Washington, D.C., right? If I were to ask you, what's Washington, D.C.? Y'all said District of Columbia. Yeah, you can see I don't even. I guess I gotta cut it too, but we let stuff grow. Matter of fact, there's stuff growing right here that you can't see because we let the grass grow. So when people start giving us the side eye, that's when we start cutting stuff. No matter where I am, like we got some property about 5 minutes from here, and we over there, same thing. Like we don't cut much. For real. They can say that's bad, this, that, or whatever. For real. The only reason why I even cut like that at all is because in the area that we're in, they do have snakes. So since they got snakes, you know, to make sure that we can see them. But yeah, I be walking barefoot even around the snakes and everything though. Ain't no shame in my game. Anyways, though, to get a couple of goats. Well, we're not in the place. We're not allowed to have goats in the area that we're in now. At least not until we get a couple of things done. We have chickens in one of the areas, and they're finally getting big enough where I'm gonna have to build a coop for them at one of the places. Probably the other place. Probably not this one. I want to use this place for, for food. Well, we're growing them for eggs, but you know what I'm saying, I want to grow it for actual vegetables. By the way, as a quick aside, and then let's get into it. I got distracted and now I'm getting to some other stuff. As a quick aside, too, I want you to think about the fact that most of the stuff that you even call natural vegetables are not natural. Like the way that these vegetables actually used to be when they were natural in their nature, many of them were much smaller, many of them were not as sweet, and many of them were much more bitter, right? We think that strawberries are actually that red. They really not supposed to necessarily be that red, but you've been told that the redder they are, the more healthy they are, right? So there's a lot of different stuff that's in there, or like eggplants, for example. Y'all know eggplants used to look like eggs. That's what, hence the name eggplant. Have you ever thought about that? Like eggs don't look like big purple things that people try to now use to look like phalluses. you know, eggplants used to look like actual eggs. So, anyways, yeah, we're looking for some stuff with the pond and the creek, not just for myself, but for the community, to do something similar to homesteading on. So, yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's something we're looking for sure. We got to make sure that we're surveying and everything. We got a couple places now we're looking at again. I got to make my way down south at some point to be able to look at them as soon as possible. We got a little connection there and then work that out. But thank y'all for being on. Anyways, let's get back into. Oh, you brought an extra border. Cool. Let's get back into Washington, D.C., though, before I get too far off. I apologize. Y'all know I can veer off very easily. Y'all know I can veer off very easily. So let's get back into this. Um, so, yeah. So, Washington, D.C., I saw somebody put District of Columbia. I saw somebody put community. I saw somebody put something similar to a community farm with a little bit more stuff, but we can get into that. If you have other questions about it, you can always ask me. Matter of fact, if you're on TikTok, or sorry, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, you guys can just look in the description of the video. And how you doing, D? You can look in the description with the video to get this information. If you're on TikTok, real quick, I'll really quickly. I'll put up our information if you want to go ahead and contact us. We do a lot more than just do live sessions for the community and diaspora. So if you'd like to find out more things that we do, or things that are up and coming, or things that you can partner with, or whatever the case might be, we do a shout out at the end of this, by the way. So you can also connect with us through there, but you can also, text us or email us, or even look up the website, or look up hashtag Find Kofi on YouTube. That's the name of the YouTube channel, and you'll find different ways that you can connect with us. All right. Okay. So hopefully we'll give you 5 more seconds. If you're writing it, typing it, or if you just want to take a screenshot. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. He said Washington, D.C., a district of government with residents, aka children of the builders. We can go into that. Washington, D.C. used to be a territory, but it's not anymore. Yep. So that we get in the Black's Law Dictionary there. And that's lawful the definition, by the way. Hey, how you doing, Sister Kimberly? Right? You think you're head of the beast? Kind of, sort of. A capital, of course, it would be the capital. But watch this. Is Washington, D.C. the capital of the United States of America? Hey, how you doing, Sister Marion? Amanat, we were just praying. Maya and I were just praying for you. Hopefully all is going well. Glad to see you on there, right? How you doing, Millie? Thanks for being part of the community. So question, is Washington, D.C. the capital of the United States of America? You said it's Biden's hood? Okay. Right. Right. Now, we're not going to make this so mystical it's not practical. We're going to come out of this today with some practicality. How you doing, Sister Tracy? Right. I see what you said, Samela Razor. Yeah, you beating me to the punch. Right. Well, Washington, D.C. is not the capital of the United States of America. Sounds weird because that's what you were taught in school. So better get Jesus and stop wasting your life worshiping stuff that you can't talk to you. That's why we worship Yahushua, because Jesus is an idol within itself, right? Jesus coming from Yesus, right? IESUS. If you know that, what it is, it's even in your 1611 King James Version. If you know what that means, right, and you know where that came from, then you probably shouldn't use that name either. You should probably use his actual name. Nevertheless, right? See, and people don't want to talk. Washington, D.C. And it's always weird. You should know the tree by the fruit it bears, like we said, and a lot of people have fruit with no seed. The goal of fruit is to make sure it has seed inside. So if somebody can't even say hello, the stuff that you're right, like Yahushua can at least introduce himself to people. You know what I'm saying? So if you can't do that, we already can see that it's a lot going on, right? But that's why I said earlier, feel free to ask, question, do whatever. Just don't do it for the sake of, right? Some people out here just question for the sake of questioning, not trying to question to get any result, any of that. Just question for the sake of question, right? So here's what we're talking about today: Washington, D.C. That's what we're talking about today. Washington, D.C. Yeah, here they come. How you doing, Henry? Washington, D.C. is not the capital of the United States of America. Matter of fact, if Washington, D.C. was the capital of the United States of America, I want to just make this practical. And how you doing, Warren? Let's just make this practical. Let's stop making it so mystical, so esoteric that nobody can grasp this and they can't get what's going on. If Washington, D.C. was the capital of the United States of America, then how come every state has a capital? Now, some of you just go, well, that's because that's the way it is. Don't give me that's just the way it is. Go all the way across the world. You might have provinces, and they might have certain cities in those provinces, but those provinces ain't got capitals. Other states don't have capital. If the states have capitals, it's because they're countries. Did you catch that? Like, a state is a country is a state is a nation, right? If they say the people of Pennsylvania, that means the state of Pennsylvania. That means the nation of Pennsylvania. That means the country. The United States is 50 countries that have been united together. So there is not a capital of the United States of America because the United States of America has 50 countries with 50 capitals. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on. Trying to look back here, make sure there's not anything crazy growing back here. Excuse me. So there are 50 countries. There are 50 countries. There are 50 countries. You hear what I'm saying? And each country has its own capital. How you doing, Sister Denise? There are 50 countries, each country having its own capital, right? I can't remember the names of all these capitals, right? But you know, what is New York has its own capital. Albany is the capital of New York, right? Virginia has its own capital, Richmond, even back from the times of chattel slavery and the war and all that stuff. Richmond's the capital of Virginia, right? Georgia has its own capital. It would be Atlanta, I believe, right? Illinois has its own capital. I forget what it is, but it's not Chicago, you know? But these are the things that we're dealing with, right? Is like you're dealing with that's sitting there, right? Yeah, the state of Israel. States are countries, exactly. How you doing, Minister Tamara? I'm sorry, I missed you earlier. Springfield, thank you. I should know that from The Simpsons. I was sitting up there like trying to figure out, I knew it was like a show. I should know that from, right? But I'm just, and how you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Mind. Check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. I'm sorry, TikTok, y'all gonna disappear for just a second. Got to make sure. I just realized that I got too much stuff going on at the same time. My battery is gonna be running low. All right, praise yeah. Right, but we want to show you something specific, right? Because you guys think more of Washington D.C. than what it actually is, and I want to help you out a little bit today, if I can, and show you that Washington D.C. is not a capital, at least not of the United States of America. You hear what I'm saying? So if it's not, so now I got to ask the question, right? Here's another question I got to ask now. Facebook, you can disappear for just a second. I'm gonna be right back. So now I got to ask another question. If it is not the capital of the United States of America, then what is Washington D.C. the capital of? First of all, what does the word capital even mean? Let's deal with that, because we think that capital is a place instead of capital being a thing. The reason why they call it your capital is because that thing, the place where it's at, serves for something. Yeah, capital is your finance, it's your money. So wherever your capital is, that's supposed to be where you protect your investments, right? That's where you protect the investment. The investment is protected in the capital, right? So Washington, D.C. is not a place to make sure that it serves the people. It's a place to protect the investment. Now, your straw man, which is they try to attach to you, they're heavily invested in that. You said it's the capital of the Vatican. Okay, cool. We're gonna show you all that in a second. We're gonna get into all that in a second. I promise you, right? I'm with you. I'm with you, right? But I want to get this down because I want everybody to catch this. Because once this starts moving, and I'm just gonna be giving some surface level stuff. Some stuff that literally came to me this rising. I started cracking open the books and everything, started watching a couple things again to make sure I was up on it, and to give you a couple things that you can read on your own. We want to give you some receipts today. How you doing, Teresa? Right? We want to give you some receipts. Okay, well, so you can go ahead and look up the receipts for yourself, but we want you to recognize what's going on. How you doing, Darius? Right, so when you're dealing with the capital, you're dealing with a place where they're protecting their investment. Did you catch that? So DC is the headquarters of the corporation of the United States. Yeah, we're getting there. Right, so Washington DC, there's also something else you got to recognize. You've been fed a lie. Now, not a lie that this is not on the law books, right, but you've been fed a lie as far as what this means. And what I'm talking about is separation of church and state. You've been fed a lie about what that means. See, because if you recognize what's going on, you think that church is a lot of people. I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people on here. How you doing, Trini? Or Trini? I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but thanks for being on. A lot of people in here think that church and state separation means separation of your belief system from your state. Now, what did we just tell you a state was, by the way? What is a state? How you doing, Bob? And thanks for being part of the community. And is that Mika, probably. All right, thanks for being part of the community. Right? Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Right? So, what does state mean again? How you doing? They call me Nani. Right, thanks for being part of the community. What does state mean again? State means what? A state is a, help me out now. I want to make sure we're thinking together. I don't want to move on without you, just in case you haven't heard this before. Right? The state is a what? The state of mind, state of belief, state of government. A state is a country. Your state of mind is the mindset that you have for the country. We don't know what this stuff means. How you doing, Sister Helen? State of mind is, how does the country think about this? How do we move as a nation? Right? No, see, a territory is not a state. It belongs to a state, or it can be part of something that states are part of. Right? They might try to put it in. I guess, I don't know. Maybe there's a technical way that you can put the two together. Let me back off that. You could probably say both of them are the same, but I want you to get used to a state as a country. A state, matter of fact, technically you can't say a territory or even a because territories are just modern ways or a new way of, or a legalized way of saying that it's slightly different than a colony. Right? And the colony is not part of the state. I mean, a colony is part of the state, but the colony belongs to the state. Right? Just like a territory is not a state, but it belongs to the state. Once again, a state is a country. So territories technically go like this. See, London had colonies. England had colonies, right? There were British colonies because British Empire was just a bunch of stuff that belonged to England, right? They were very romantic, right? And the way that they did stuff, trying to have ties that went back to ancient Rome, at least telling you they did on paper. That was the belief system that got them to where they are, right? When we're talking about territories, territories are really something that belongs to a bunch of states or a bunch of countries that have come together. Britain, the British Empire, is basically what you would call, in a sense, the United States of America, right? The British Empire was all these things that belong to England, right? It still is. If you talk about Britain, the United Kingdom, at least if we want to go there, you're talking about more than just England. If you're not from those places, you might not be aware of it because they don't really teach it like that in school. They say it. You have to maybe write it down on the test at some point. But see, if you're dealing with the United Kingdom, you're dealing with at least 4 countries and then many colonies still, believe it or not. They still have colonies. Jamaica did not get free from England. Jamaica still has to ask permission for certain things to be able to do. Jamaica still can't own their land just like that, right? They have to ask for permission. So a lot of people don't know, you still have a lot of Caribbean places that still are tied to England and still under England, just like you have a lot of African nations that are supposedly free, but they still have to pay to France. And if they ever stop paying France their reparations, France is actually is actually poor. France would become a third world nation, right? So there's a lot of stuff that actually bounces around in that. But getting back to Washington D.C., if I may, right? Let me stay focused. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Right? Yeah, because that would be the British Commonwealth, or right, exactly. But so getting back to the United States of America. The United States of America is 50 states that come together, right? But when you're talking about the United States of America, you also have something called the United States, and that's different, especially if it's all caps. All caps United States. You should always look out for that, because now we're talking about the beast. We're not talking about countries. We're talking about the beast and how they perform. Amen, Sister Monica. Yeah, you're not crazy. Like we said on the thing not too long ago on Patreon, you're not crazy. Right? How you doing, Candy? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Drea? Thanks for being part of the community. See, the United States is the corporation, according to law, right? 28, we say this all the time, 28 USC 3002 15 subsection A. By the way, that means the USC stands for United States Code. And says, in case you think we're making this up, look up 28 USC 3002 15A. How you doing, Sister Judith? Right, shalom to everybody. Blessings be upon thee. Barak Allah Cham Yehovah. Thank you, everybody, for being on today. Let's get up higher in this learning, right? So you have it in your, so 28 USC 3002 15A, 28 USC 3002 15A. I'll say it in the Greek form that a lot of y'all use, 28 USC 3002 15 Alpha. And it says that the United States is, in fact, not a country, but it is a corporation. That's United States Code. That's the law. If you look up Section B, it tells you that it's a group. It tells you that it's a board, right? Board of directors, stuff like that. If you look up subsection C, it's going to tell you that it is also instrumentalization. It can be used as a negotiable instrument, but it is not a country. Period. How you doing, Rita? Thanks for being on. Thanks for being part of the community as well. So we're dealing with a lot of stuff where we don't recognize what's going on. You think the United States is a country, but the United States is a corporation. And you think that Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States of America, but all of the states, all of the countries, the 50 states, the 50 countries in the United States of America, they have their own capitals. They have their own place where they protect the capital. That's what a capital is, a place where we're going to protect the capital, and we're going to make sure we oversee the capital, whether it be your birth certificate, whether it be fiat cash, whether it be any gold or silver we might still kind of sort of have. Oh no, it's definitely not a new page. It's something that they took away for a while and we don't use as often. And so I'm gonna have to start using it more often. We normally would be doing our live sessions in the Rising on Kofi_43 in the evening at Kofi_42. And then somewhere in there, I try to fit in this page as I have time throughout the day. But that's where we are now, right? But Shalom, how you doing? You said this is why each state make their own laws or codes. Well, yeah, and they base it off of what? The UCC. So you learn the UCC because that's kind of a catch-all. A lot of people base their codes off of the UCC. And then from there, you look at the states to see what do they call it in their state. Do they agree with the UCC? Do they, right? What do they call it in their state code, et cetera? But we're all using pretty much the same thing, right? How you doing, Avis? We're all using the same thing. How you doing, Unstoppable? Thanks for being on, right? Barakallah, Sham Yahabit, everybody. Blessings upon everybody coming in. So, talking about Washington, D.C., we can see easily that it doesn't make sense that it would be the capital of the United States of America, because obviously every state has its own capital. If every state has its own capital, then you wouldn't have the state. See, they try to get you. They try to say, well, this is the state capital, but then there's everybody else. And what they've got us doing for the longest time is they have us signing up for something. They have you making verbal contracts, written contracts, signing up. How you doing, Sister Lori? How you doing, Christina? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Trauma Shaman? They've been having you sign up for a long time and getting you to believe. Come on, somebody. Getting us to believe and getting you to sign up to participate in a fictitious entity, a fictitious country that's actually on paper. They tell you specifically and strategically, they tell you on paper, according to law, that this is not a country you're dealing with, but you're dealing with a corporation, which means now that I've got to figure out what is Washington, D.C. Because if Washington, D.C. is not a capital of the United States of America, right? And they tell me it's a capital of the United States. Problem with that is, though, is that the United States is not a country. So Washington, D.C., now I got to figure out what it is. And number one, I figured out that it's a corporation. So now we're using the United States rather than a corporation. So Washington, D.C., if it's a capital of the corporation and not the country, You hear what I'm saying? So now, if the United States is a capital, right, of a corporation, and what is a capital? A capital is the place that you're protecting your capital or protecting your investments. Now we got to figure out what is Washington, D.C. invested in, right? And what is it that Washington, D.C. considers to be capital? Now we got a better place to go. Did you catch that? Now we got a better place to go. See, I have to ask myself, I have to get to a place. You said technically the states are countries and the United States is a corporation. Washington, D.C. is the headquarters. Yeah, that's what we've been saying. Yep. So thank you for verifying that for us. Right. How you doing, Hibiscus? So now I got to ask myself, what is the capital? What do they consider to be capital in capitalism? Right. And what are they invested in? It's going to be the same answer. Right. That's now we got a place to go. Now we can focus a little bit. Now we can have more direct conversation, because if I figure out what the capital is, then I got to figure out what's there. Right. And somebody said us. So look, watch this. We got to break this down, but we got to break this down the way that you don't want to do. And I hear Minister Shantae's lesson from yesterday in my head, ringing in my ears. Praise Yah, where she was talking about religion versus relationship. And a lot of people teach you, and this is why you got to, in a sense, you do need to separate church from state. Remember, I asked about that earlier? In a sense, you do need to separate church from state, because a lot of y'all think that church, right, means, when they say separation of church and state, it means religion. But they said, look, if we're going to be a state, if you're going to have an actual state or a government, you got to remove church, because we don't respect church, because we don't really respect Christianity. And I'm not a Christian, by the way. I'm just telling you what it is. You think that church and state, no. Like, we're not going to let these beliefs of church stop what we're going to be doing to people in their state, in their country, and what we govern them in. How you doing, Overcomer? And we're going to get there. But I need you to catch this. You think the separation of church and state. See, church comes from word cirque. Cirque is talking about circus. They know, they comprehend that you're not really going to be able to govern people with a circus, which is going to sound really weird when we start really getting into what y'all talking about. When you're talking about the Vatican, and you're talking about England, and you're talking about Washington, D.C. Right? Because really, a lot of people don't get this. But you know the flag. Let me put it to you like this. See, because people don't know how much religion goes into this. You think that this stuff is just done and you can separate spirituality from anything, right? And even though that's not how law works. Kingdom law, marital law, natural law, law of attraction, law of first mention, procedural law, maritime law, common law, law of equity, substantive law, natural law, public and private law, etc. Like, y'all, you can't separate spirit from law as much as y'all think you can. This is why in law you have no laws about evolution, or you have no laws that protect evolution. You have laws that protect people's right to say whatever, but you'll find it interesting that there are laws to protect your spirituality. You know why? Because law is a spiritual thing. Even theories, whether it's a theory of gravity, theory of relativity, theory of the theory of evolution, etc. All these theories, they're not technically allowed to even be called theories unless they are based on some kind of law, whether it be natural law or something else. Right? This is why when we teach those masters, right? If you should be the master, you should try to become the master. You should become the teacher, the master, the teacher, right? We try to teach the teachers, these masters that have to know the law. If you're going to become a master of something, there's technically on the world's law books, there's technically only 3 laws that matter anyways. Somebody help me out. Anybody know what I'm talking about? There's technically, when you come to common law, there's only 3 things that common law really is dealing in. You think of common law because you're looking at things that Englishmen did were common to them, and in the 1800s, somebody came together and made it your law. But there's only 3 things according to the world, not according to the Bible. I get you what you're saying, love. Okay, somebody got it. There you go. Do not steal, do not lie, and don't cause any harm to anybody. That's it. Those are the 3 laws. Everything else that you know in the world that they make legal, because not everything legal is lawful, not everything lawful is legal. Everything else that they do in the world is called statutes. Now, biblically speaking, the statute in the culture of those who wrote the Bible is different. But everything else you're dealing in is a statute. Right? Everything else you're dealing in is a statute. Oh, all right. Thank you, Mom. Appreciate it. Mama schooled you. Right? There you go, TNT. I missed you on there too. How you doing? How you doing, TY? So you got to recognize, like, you're dealing in stuff where you don't even recognize what's law, what's legal, what's legalese. Is this actually lawful terminology? What is the etymology of this and that, or whatever? Everything else you're dealing with outside of, hey, are you hurting somebody? Are you killing somebody? I'm sorry, are you hurting somebody, harming somebody? Are you lying to somebody? Are you stealing from somebody? Those, according to the world and stuff, that's the only 3 laws that should be common. Everything else that you're dealing in is a statute. And statutes is something that you have the option of following. This is law. This is law. What you call common law now, you think that common law, see, that's what used to be common to all humanity, were those 3, right? But what you call common law is what? A statute. And you shouldn't follow their statutes. Now, we believe in following certain spiritual statutes because we believe that those statutes are under a king, right? And when I say king, I'm not even talking about male or female, if you know how our culture works, right? Elohim is neither male nor female because there's no male or female in heaven, just like there's no marriage in heaven, nor is there being given away in marriage. So in our culture, like if I speak After, what you call Hebrew, if I speak After, then in our culture, when I say Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit is always a she, but she is not a female. She's in heaven. She can go in this heaven, that heaven. She can go through the heaven of the atmosphere, right? But she's not a female, right? The Father is a he, but the same Father that's a he, he's in heaven. So he's neither male nor female. Matter of fact, the same Father that's a he, it says that you could suckle from his bosom because he's not a male nor he's a female. We're talking about the masculine spirit and the feminine spirit. Even Israel referred to as a she, right? Married to Yahweh, the Father. And then out of them comes a physical son because he was on the earth. So he would be a physical son, but then even he went up to heaven, which means that once he gets up to heaven, whether he is physically a male or female anymore, doesn't matter. Inside every person is masculine and feminine. Inside every person is spirit. This is law. This is universal law. The natural man, though, or the natural woman, according to Western law, that would be the natural male, the natural female. And by the way, and I'm not trying to speak against LGBTQ plus, because even though I might not agree with the lifestyle, you are human beings. And I tell people this all the time: be careful what you keep wanting people to call you, because they don't have laws in the books to protect those people that you're calling yourself, or those persons. And I'm not trying to say things. I'm telling you how the law looks at you, right? How the law looks at you. See, we don't comprehend how to look at this stuff, so we can't even look at Washington, D.C. correctly. Hear what I'm saying? The law looks at you as far as what the law has defined you as, right? The law does not have a definition to treat anybody like a human being outside of a natural man or a natural woman. And really a natural man, but by law, a natural man can be an actual woman or man, right? But if you are an artificial person, then you don't have the rights that you think you have. See, you're speaking in legalese and not in proper English or proper wording, period, because a lot of the words we use aren't even English terms anyways. Amen. Like my wife said, legalese is different than English, 2 different cultures and languages. And thank you for the love, right? So whether you're mad at me because I don't cape up for your sexuality, so to speak, I need you to recognize I'm more about protecting you than you are, because I need you to comprehend you're not even calling yourself something that has rights. It's like calling yourself an African American. Be careful. African American didn't exist till around 1980. So why would African Americans get reparations if African Americans didn't exist during the times of slavery? At least what they define slavery as. We know according to the 13th Amendment, slavery still exists. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Stay with me now. We going to make this thing, we going to stop making it so mystical in your arguments that we can make it practical in your everyday walk. You said you surprised me stating you don't agree with the lifestyle, but why I just said that there's no he or she. Yeah, in heaven. There's neither male nor female in heaven, nor is there marriage in heaven. At least not marriage in the sense that we think it is. But the Most High says he's married to us in the spirit. But he says to make that reflect the way that he is, he did something specific and created certain things for us specifically to make sure that what was done on earth would be a reflection of what's done in heaven. But we're talking about he put the stuff on earth in a physical manner. In heaven, he put it in a spiritual manner. So what we think of as male or female is not the same thing in the spirit, but in the flesh, there are certain principles that should be caught. Now, once again, though, that comes to a cultural thing. That comes to something I learn. I talk about every day. We teach classes on. We live every day, right? And we live it differently than everybody else does. So once again, somebody to make the correlation between the two, it doesn't necessarily make sense. I get what you're saying because you're like, I'm surprised by that. But once again, when I hear somebody talk about Elohim, say God is a different thing. For example, like God will say God. People say God. That's a Germanic deity. God can be whatever you want it to be. In God we trust. Your money. Right? In God we trust is an oath, right? Even when you make your oath in marriage, right? A lot of people don't know that an oath in anything, any oath you ever take, any oath that a president makes, any oath that a governor makes, any oath that somebody in the military, by the way, thank you for your service, I'm former military myself, any oath that one makes is an oath. It is a promise to God or to a deity. That's what an oath is. Right. So a lot of people are making oaths under God and not even realizing that's a whole different cultural way of looking at something. Right. Male and female on earth is Yah's will, Yahweh Elohim's will, and his directive and his law that secures, because law doesn't give right, law protects rights. Natural law protects the rights of certain things. And watch this, in the Constitution, they're using natural law. Even talking about marriage, by the way, you think that marriage is walking down the aisle because it's a different culture. Not talking about you specifically, by the way. I hope it's not coming off like that. If it is, please forgive me. But see, marriage is not walking down an aisle. Marriage is not something that has to be contracted to the state. Marriage is consummation, two become one, whether it be kingdom law or whether it be the world's law. If you get married, if you walk down the aisle with somebody today and y'all don't consummate your marriage and you get tired of the fact y'all haven't slept together in like 2 weeks, but y'all married, you can go before the judge and be like, they won't sleep with me. And the judge will probably annul your marriage because it doesn't count. It was never consummated. But a lot of people keep talking about they want to have sex freely and have sex with this person, sex with this person. Sex is marriage. Marriage is sex. And because you guys were contracted to the state when you were born, your parents signed you over to the state. That's why you have a birth certificate from the state. Since you were signed over to the state when you were born, when you're married, when you have sex with somebody, when you're married to somebody, and your children are born from them, and let's say the father doesn't take care of his responsibility, who do you go to? You go to the state, and the state looks at your child that's been registered to them. They look at you, who's been registered to another state, or maybe even that state. By the way, if you register to another state, technically the husband or the wife, whoever, or the man or the woman, doesn't even have to necessarily deal with the state. People are like, oh, they can garnish your way. No, you can't. You have to agree to that. You got to show up to court. You got to answer their questions. You don't even have to agree to it. See, this is why sovereignty, we have to be careful with it, because a lot of people start misusing it, right? But because y'all all buy into that you belong to a state and then start allowing these states to work together, and then you go before the court, and guess what? The court, they make a percentage off of the mother's not getting 100% of what the child support payment is. And guess what? The judges who look over your child support cases, the judges, guess where their pension comes from? In most states. I won't say all states, but in most states. Guess where the judges' pensions come from? They come from child support. The system is not for you, right? So this whole context that we have of marriage is because we contract our marriages to the state. I tell people all the time, like, if I marry you, I'm a or what many people call a pastor. As a pastor, I teach people how to make sure that they write up their own well, we do marriage constitutions for personal use, but then write up your own marriage contract. By law, you're allowed to. You can write up a contract for anything, just as long as it's lawful, and put in there what the punishments are, this, that, whatever, right? Make it a trust if you want to, where it doesn't even belong to either one of the people. I wouldn't do that, but if you want to go to that extent too, fine. And once you finish doing all that, you finish going through all that, then you go. If y'all end up getting a divorce for some reason or want one, and the other person's not going to follow the law of the letter or what you guys agreed upon in the contract, then bring it before the judge. The judge is nothing more than the trustee. What does the trustee do? The trustee has to look at what the trustor or the person who wrote it said and find out who the beneficiary of the trust is, whether it's both of you or one of you. So even our concept of marriage, you see what I'm saying? It's based off a very Western process. And we don't realize that every time you sleep with somebody, that's marriage. That's why if you ever get impregnated by somebody, right? Or if you ever SA somebody and take away their innocence, right? Or take away their chastity without permission, this is why they come to you and they say that's a crime. Why is it a crime? It's not just because you made somebody feel bad. It's not just because it's sinister. It's not just because you're messing with somebody's spirituality, whatever. No, you have messed around. That person is registered with the state, right? That person is supposed to be protected as a male or female. And then they're coming for her, according to natural law. They are registered with the state. And so because you've tried to enter into a marriage with them that they themselves said that they did not want to enter into, or you to enter into them, whatever, they now come and they say, we're going to arrest you, or we're going to put you on trial to see if you in fact violated somebody's marriage, or violated, forced somebody into a marriage that they didn't want, that they didn't sign up for. You tried to put them into a contract, trying to get anybody to contract with anybody illegally, right? Or forcing somebody into a contract, right? That's against UCC 1-308, or what used to be known as UCC 1-207. You right? You did it. It wasn't not without prejudice. You did it under duress. You were married into something. That's what marriage is. And thanks for being part of community knowledge. Appreciate you. Knowledge underscore. See, so we have a lot of people talking about marriage, and we don't even recognize what marriage is. Sex is marriage. Marriage is sex. Every time you have sex with somebody, you married them. Matter of fact, two become one. Your DNA gets together with somebody. That's why you can't forget your first, even if it was terrible. You said, I'm confused. So you don't reside in the state or have a license? You don't have to. What are you talking about for marriage? You don't have to have a marriage license to be married. You don't have to license, right? Like, you know how like you register your car? You don't have to register your car. Your car is registered to whoever owns it. When you finally get your car, then you can say, this is mine. I own it. Especially if you pay for it in cash. If you cash out, this is mine. You register with the state because that's what you were told you have to do, but you don't have to register with the state because the state doesn't own your car. Once they own your car, though, what you're saying is, now I give you guys permission to tell me what to do. Now you might have to pay some taxes for it, right? When your child is born, your child can exist without a birth certificate or a social security card. They can even travel. It's a little more difficult, but they can even travel without it. Your child can go to college without a social security card or a birth certificate. They can have a job without a social security card or a birth certificate. They can have a business because you probably want to train up a child in the way that they should go. So when they grow old, they won't depart from it. For the servant will always be, or I'm sorry, for the borrower will always be a servant to the lender. Therefore, teach them how to be the lender and not the borrower. That's Proverbs 22, 6 and 7, right? We stop only at verse 6. But see, that's why you register with the state. The state wants you to register the child because once the state is the child is registered with the state, technically that's a ward of state. That's their child. You see what I'm saying? So when we get to Washington, D.C., it's hard for us to even comprehend marriage because we don't even comprehend how capital works. See, your marriage just feeds the capital. Now your marriage is capital. No cap. What'd you say, babe? You said you could not go into contract legally under duress. Yeah, that's why 28 20. Sorry, that's why UCC 1-308 used to be UCC 1-207. That's why that's so awesome that exists, because if you force me into something under duress, or you have me sign a contract without me actually knowing what it is, or if you try to force me into something, it's there to protect. So that's why that R word, right? That's why that R word is illegal on paper. Right? It's unlawful on paper. Now we know it's unlawful. We know we shouldn't do it, but I'm just trying to tell you this is how they look at it. Right? They're looking at it in a different manner. See, because they follow law. We're a lot of times lawless in our approach, and we're more legal in our approach. But not everything that's lawful is legal. Not everything that's legal is lawful. Or we're more so into statutes and not common law. Our word, stands for SA, for forcing somebody to lay down with somebody without their consent. I don't want to say the word on social media or in case we have some young people, because we have people of all ages that listen to this. So I try my best to be aware of those things. Right. So, but you see what I'm saying? So it's hard for us to even comprehend marriage because a lot of times people don't even comprehend what marriage is. By law, marriage is sex and sex is marriage. Right. This is why if you believe in this canon, real quick, and then we got to get back to Washington, D.C. Right. But great question. I appreciate it. Right. Yeah, rhymes with great, but I can't say what it is. All right. Um, this is why in this canon that many people believe in, the people who wrote this, there's a culture. A lot of people talk about the context or the text without context, but you can't talk about context without facts. You can't talk about facts without context. You have to have contextual facts if you're going to speak truth. So this is what we're dealing in, right? And when you look at this, nowhere in this have you ever seen that somebody wore a white dress, but that's what you think marriage is. Nowhere in this does it say that you're supposed to stand on the right side of the preacher and the left. Now, I get what the representation is, but it's not law to do that. Somebody made up a whole bunch of stuff and you follow it as if it's law, but it's not, right? Matter of fact, the reason why you kiss at the end of the ceremony, when I say, I now pronounce you husband and wife, you may kiss the bride, you're doing that as a representation of you guys are going to have sex together. But the reason why you're doing that is because that's very Victorian. It's culture. Why is that Victorian? In Victorian culture, it was very wild for a woman to even show her ankle to somebody, right? To her to pull up her leg and be like, I'm gonna show ankle. All the guys were like, oh snap, you see that? Like nowadays, you can just walk down the street and see everything through some yoga pants with no drawers on, or see some yoga pants, with the thong on, and you already done seen everything you need to see. Back then, if she was showing some ankle, you was like, oh, you know what I'm saying? You said it's a science book written in allegory. I would say that it's truth that doesn't mind science, because science and truth, right? Science and spirituality in many different ways go hand in hand, because if you know about kingdom law, universal law, and natural law, then the three have to go hand in hand. So nowadays we don't have any, we're very uncouth in certain places in society, and so we allow certain things to happen. But back then, if you saw somebody ankle, that thing was like that in Victorian society. And a lot of you keep Victorian stuff in your mind. Matter of fact, when you go to church, that's why they say cover everything from head to toe. And y'all can't stand to see a belly button. You can't stand to see a little bit of cleavage, which, by the way, a lot of y'all ain't prepared for because you've been oversexed. So we need to protect these sisters anyways, and protect some of these brothers. All right. Because you got brothers out here that now you showing everything in the tightest suit because you've been over sexualized so much. Right. But you're not thinking, we're not thinking in the same culture. So you talk about biblical context, you're not even thinking African context. And then somebody says, well, Israelites weren't African. Yes, they were. Look at who they were mixed with. And before they were called Israel, where did they come from? And look up where the land of Goshen actually is. Right. Look up who Joseph married into. He married into Kemet. Look at who Moses married into. He married into Cush. Right. Look at where Abraham actually comes from. They weren't, right before there was an Israelite, there was still a word, there was still a law. So anyways, people don't comprehend when we're talking about this. So back to Washington, D.C. Back to Washington, D.C., right? Back to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is a very interesting context to talk about, because once again, we're talking about something that we don't function in very well. We don't comprehend how capital works. So I talked about your birth certificate. Your birth certificate is a straw man. Your birth certificate is a straw man. Right? How you doing, Rissa? Your birth certificate is a straw man. What is a straw man? A straw man is a fictitious entity that somebody has created to be able to get you to contract with it, or to get you to believe that you are one with it, so that as your straw man is brought into contracts, you will believe that's you. If you don't believe, if you think that that's too long, how about this? We showed this the other day, right? I don't have the picture anymore on my phone, but we showed this to y'all the other day on TikTok. If you sign a check, right? If you sign a check on the bottom right-hand line, that is not a line at the bottom. Correct? And thank you for the love. Appreciating. How you doing, Lynette? How you doing, Rhea? Araya? Is it Rhea Araya? All right. If you sign the check, you're not signing a line. You're not putting your name on the line on the bottom of the check. You know that, right? Somebody says, conspiracy theory. No. And thank you for the love. Appreciate it. How you doing, Dion? Like, no, when you sign a check, you are not signing your name on a line on the check. You know this, right? You know it's not a line. It is not a line. I guarantee you it's not. Right? When you sign, by the way, this is not just on a check, it's on many different documents. You just have to know what to look for. Next time you look at your checkbook or go look up a check right now, right? If you want to go look on Google and come back, or if you want to look at something else so you can see or hear what I'm saying, you know, while I'm saying it, right? But when you get a chance, go Google a check line or type in Google, type in check MP. Type in sign check MP, the letters MP, right? What you'll find is that it says MP where you're supposed to sign. Stands for microprint, right? That means that means if you want to know what it says that you're about to sign on, you should look at it as something that magnifies it. Or else, how do you know what it says? Now, I've heard that there's a bunch of different ones that exist. I have not found evidence of this, but I do have evidence of the one that I'm about to talk about today. One thing that you will definitely see, right? Definitely one thing you'll see on there as far as when it says MP or microprint, guess what one thing you'll see on there? Or you will definitely see in a lot of these checks, it will say authorized signature. Authorized with an ED on it at the end. Authorized signature, right? Signature. Okay. Now, why does that matter? Why is it that you're not just signing on a line, but it has to say authorized signature in a lot of these places? Why does it say that? It's saying that because there's a transfer of authority or a transfer of power. And thanks for being part of the community, all that are following, except now is it Sean McCoy and Empress, right? You're looking at a transference of power, right? And you were never taught this, you were never shown this, so you don't think anything of it. But it's not as simple as I'm just signing a check. There's a transference of power. Now, what do you mean, transference of power? Right? What do you mean, transference of power? When you write your name, this is common law or British law. You think about it as common law, as far as we know what common law really is. But see, you're getting into legalese. So when they say common law, they're talking about the law that was common to those of England at the time that England ruled and had authority, and technically still does over your life, right? So that's what you're thinking. You're thinking common law about all those statutes that England came up with and told you this is law. I'm sorry, you're thinking about common law as far as, hey, as long as I don't hurt nobody, as long as I don't steal, as long as I don't lie. But no. Common law, they have you in its statutes to where you're choosing to operate in the system. Now watch this. You ready? So it says authorized signature because in common law that the English used, if you put your name, if you wrote your name out, if I wrote out KOFI and the capital K, and then space, and then I put capital O, and then lowercase FORI. If I put capital K, lowercase OFI, if I put capital O and put lowercase FORI, what I'm saying is that I'm saying that's my actual, real, natural man. That's who I actually am. That's who I was named. That's the name that I authorized. That's what I've agreed to. That's who I am. Right? I'm saying I personally agree with that, right? Now, here's the problem: is on your check, and a lot of the stuff that you do business in, this is the same way, right? A lot of the stuff you do business with, same thing on your check. In that upper left-hand corner, right? What are you going to see in the upper left-hand corner? On the upper left-hand corner, you're going to see all caps, KOFI space all caps OFORI. That is not who I am by common law. Yeah, thank you, Ben. Appreciate that. Right? That's not who I am by right common law. That's my straw man. That's my birth certificate. That's why I showed you guys. People don't be believing. Oh, I don't have it. I showed y'all before in my wallet. I don't have my wallet out here, but I showed you guys before that on the card. I showed you in the back of the card. I got my name in uppercase and then lowercase and uppercase, lowercase. A lot of y'all don't even have that. Some of you do. Praise y'all. But see, Even when you do, they still switch it when you start signing stuff over, because microprint, it tells you authorized signature. So you sign on not a dotted line, you sign on something that says authorized signature. Why? Because if I sign a microprint line that says authorized signature, what I'm doing is I'm signing this thing that says that I authorize my real man, my natural man, authorizes you to do business with my straw man. So whatever the straw man does and whatever currency passes by this bank, right? That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with maritime terms. So I'm authorizing the real person who they say was lost at sea, right? At birth, the vessel they couldn't find at birth, and they wrote a birth certificate saying that you dead because they couldn't find you. The water broke. They saw the water, but they never saw the vessel. And your parents agreed and signed away that, yeah, we never saw the vessel. So we registered this dead body over with you to do what you need to do. And they said, okay, cool. Well, now that you've given us permission, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a straw man. We create the straw man that says that the water that was birthed here, that should be at port, was never there. Right? That's why you had to go through some lawful things to report who you really are. See, what I'm doing, I'm just reporting to you. See, I was supposed to be ported here, but they said I was gone, and really I lost the sense of who I was because they taught me a whole bunch of stuff that had nothing to do with me. Now I'm coming back to report and tell y'all, hey, there's a way out. These terms mean something. These are lawful terms. These are terms that are there to bless you. Anyways, so lost at birth, dead, DOA, you dead on arrival. We signed you, we registered that with the state, but we're going to keep on using your name as a straw man. The straw man is now a dead version of you, but it's still in the water. So once again, I'm signing my natural man showed up to say, hey, you know what? I authorize you. I could stand up for myself and say this isn't right, but I authorize you guys to go ahead and keep using this straw man so that the currency that's flowing can still flow between my straw man and the bank, the river bank. Right? But we don't comprehend it. So when somebody's talking to you about this stuff, it's hard because when you're dealing with Washington, D.C., you're dealing with capital, and capital is you. The system makes money off of you. They're making money off of you. You are the capital. That's why when people say all this stuff, that's why your Bible says in Psalm 23, verse 6, it says, surely, this means promise to you, surely righteousness and mercy, or grace and mercy, or what you call goodness and mercy, right? But surely grace and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the bit or the bait or the house or the family of Adon, of the Lord, forever, or of Jehovah forever. Now, here's the thing. Surely his righteousness and mercy shall follow me. What does that mean? That means that you are the ATM. You have it in your mind that you're supposed to chase the bag. You got it in your mind that you're supposed to run after the stuff. You're supposed to sign up with the system, get the social security number, get the birth certificate, get the job, go to the school, do this. No. You are the ATM. Money follows you. The government knows that. The beast knows that. He said, and you were actually born 9 months before delivering? Yeah, technically that, right? Like even in other countries, other countries, I don't know if they do 9 months before delivery. Some do. I know like places like Korea, everybody basically gets the same born day. Everybody celebrates their born day basically at the same time. That's their version of New Year's, I think. So everybody celebrates their born day at the same time, on the same date, but everybody is a year older than when they were born. So in their country, like what we would call 85, in Korea, they would say you're 86. Why would you be 86? Well, you're 86 because for them, they just add a year to your to the day that you were born because you were around that long. See, so for them, see what I'm saying, how lawful things work? And that's a great point. See how I'm saying how legalese or lawful things work? See, the only reason why you think abortion is real is because you forgot that a child existed in the womb. As a matter of fact, technically, see, that's why you got to learn about your eternal self and your physical self. See, this is when these laws really start taking shape, and this legalese, you can start fighting against it, and you can buck against the system. See, a lot of you got to flow with the system, that currency, you got to flow with it. But see, this is when you can start bucking against the system. See, because real talk, before you were born, before your mother and father knew each other, before they slept in the same bed, Jehovah says, I already knew you. I was already intimate with you. The word know means to be intimate with, to be intimate to the point of producing fruit that will provide seed. How you doing, Lindsay? Thanks for being part of the community. See, so the only reason why the abortion thing happens, and I'm not here to tell you you're evil because you like abortion, this and that, or whatever. I have no heaven or hell to put anybody in. I'm just trying to show you some tools that might help you to be able to see these things as well, right? Because you had this thing in your mind where you think that it's always been this way. Like you think school has always existed. Y'all keep talking about the school systems and school shootings and how school can be better and this and that or whatever. School, the way you think about it, didn't exist till Thomas Jefferson, and then got a shape up when got reshaped, got a shape up for real, for real. It's the same haircut that Thomas Jefferson gave, but then they gave it a shape up when the Rockefellers showed up. But you keep talking about you gonna make the school system better. The school system was created to make sure that poor white folk and slaves basically were gonna stay on that level, but they were gonna know how to work for the slave master. And then the Rockefellers came and said, "Hey, we want poor white folk and slaves to be able to make sure they work for us." That's what school's about. College then became something that they used to make sure that people that could afford it could be able to get something that you couldn't get. Now everybody goes to college and puts themselves in debt just the same. So now they don't care about college anymore, do they? School was never supposed to be about learning. School was supposed to make sure that there were certain people. Matter of fact, look at the names of them. Do some research. Before it was preschool, which doesn't even make sense. I got to go to something that belongs to school, but it's not quite school yet, preschool. So let's throw that away because that's something new that y'all doing now, right? But you know, kindergarten, kindergarten, a garden that we grow in the next people. Look up the Cabbage Patch. Y'all remember the Cabbage Patch Kids? Right? We have children. We don't have kids. Kids are baby goats. But you remember the Cabbage Patch Kids that everybody's buying? Go look up the history of Cabbage Patch. Not don't look up just the history of the television shows or the dolls. Go look up hundreds of years ago that they used to have all these paintings of Cabbage Patch Kids, children that were coming out of these they were being grown specifically to work as slaves. That's what the idea means. Yeah, and the blind can be leading the blind if we don't know any better. See, that's what a Cabbage Patch Kid. That's where that comes from. You think that's just something cute, and they all have. Yep, exact. Thank you for beating. See, we hear on that, and they all come with birth certificates. They all come with a birth certificate. If you had a Cabbage Patch Kid that didn't come with a birth certificate, it's because somebody lost it, or basically like you got one from a hand me down. But everyone that you bought came with this birth certificate. You know why? Because they're getting you to think that it's cute, it's nice, it's all, isn't that cute? The little baby comes with a birth certificate. That's what they did. That's why a lot of you, going back to marriage briefly, that's why a lot of y'all think the way that you think about marriage. Why do men play games? Men play games because we were raised on games. Games had rules, they had regulations, this and that, but also we were supposed to do whatever we could to win by any means necessary. That's why y'all like Michael Jordan, even though he's a jerk to everybody. He tears up people's lives. He teaches his son that it's okay to go ahead and sleep with other people's wives. He's doing all, like he leaves his wife and then he gets with somebody else. He has stuff that where prisons are building Nikes and all this stuff and all these things like that. Y'all don't, nobody cares though, because he wins at all costs. But that's what boys were taught by their mothers and fathers. You better win. Let's go. At all costs. So now you got brothers that win at all costs. That's why when men grew up or whatever, especially back in the day, they didn't used to say how many girls you get or this and that or whatever. What they used to say? They used to say, I scored. Right? They used to say, I scored. Because that's what you were supposed to do, because you played games. This is why women don't like to listen to men and look at men nowadays as accessories. You know why? I'm not saying every woman, I'm saying every man. There's exceptions to all these rules, but hear what I'm saying. Think about how many women grew up on Barbie. Whether she was white, black, Asian, I don't care. Think about how many women grew up on Barbie. Right? And when you grow up on Barbie, guess what? Everything belongs to Barbie. And everything that Barbie needs is in the mind of the one who plays with Barbie. Barbie is your straw man. She's an extension of yourself. Right? Barbie's an extension of yourself. You hear what I'm saying? So you played with Barbie, and it was Barbie's clothes. It was Barbie's comb. It was Barbie's horse. It was Barbie's pony. It was Barbie's car. It was Barbie's house. It was Barbie's mansion. All these were accessories to Barbie, but there was also another accessory that came with Barbie too. His name was Ken. Right? If you never had a Barbie, okay. I'm talking to those who did, or might have come up with something similar, or you might have played with dolls in a similar fashion, or you might have seen some things or whatever. Maybe you're somebody who never had any of this influence you whatsoever. Praise you out, right? If the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, take it off. But I'm here to tell you, there's a lot of people that were influenced by this stuff. And see, Barbie had an accessory, all these accessories, and guess what? Ken was an accessory. And Barbie, right? And Barbie talked to Ken the way that you thought that you should talk to your husband, even though you was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And nobody was teaching about marriage, because in our culture, you start teaching people about marriage from the time that they are born. Right? But nobody taught us about marriage. So you got to be older and you finally ran into a Ken, but you started getting mad that Ken couldn't read your mind. But Ken could always read your mind when you were playing with him, because Ken was in your head, just like Barbie was in your head. It was a fallacy. It was a fictitious entity. It was a straw man. Right? Ken had to be worthy. Ken had to do whatever Barbie said to maybe get a kiss. Right? You know what I'm saying? So now a lot of people, they get to be older and you see Ken. I didn't say everybody, once again. For those that this hits, or maybe somebody that you run into, or maybe somebody you've been in a relationship with, or maybe somebody who's a family member, you might want to look into this. Because there are certain things that you had when you were younger that affect you, and they were put there strategically. They sell this stuff after they study human behavior. They don't just sell something randomly. They're studying your behavior. This is why they keep telling you about Washington, D.C., and you think Washington, D.C. is a place. Right? So you finally got an actual husband. So a lot of you, first of all, haven't even tried to get husbands. You've tried to have sex and relationships or go out on dates with men. See, even if you believe in biblical culture, there's no such thing as dating. But that's what you do. See, you came from a different culture and you trying to figure out why it keeps messing up. Right? But hear what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying? The vaccine, not necessarily, at least not until some people start winning cases. But hear what I'm saying? There are a lot of little girls, because in every little girl is a queen, and in every queen is a little girl. Every queen started off as a princess. Every princess becomes a queen. It's an eternal concept. It's an eternal context. Right? And so if that's what you thought marriage was then, and nobody ever corrected it, what you think marriage is now? Yes, through my mother's side, I am Ghanaian, or Shwi. I don't even like necessarily saying Ghanaian, because Ghana is something that we basically got permission to eventually call ourselves or whatever, because the British government finally gave us territory back that really was never territory for everybody over there, but they just threw a bunch of tribes in a certain place. But yes, if we have to have that title, yes, I am Ghanaian, at least through that part of it. All right. But hear what I'm saying. You hear what I'm saying? Like these are things that we're not aware of, right? So when you deal with marriage, and even being married into a system, contracted into a system, getting into a spiritual knowledge, becoming one with a system, becoming one with the beast, that's marriage. This is why Yah says, he says what? He says, leave those things alone. Stop dealing with those idols. Stop signing up for these contracts, right? Jubilee chapter 1, right? When Moses went up to go ahead and get the 10 commandments, when you read the book of Jubilee, you'll discover that Moses is told straight up, like, all this stuff is going to happen. He said that I'm going to give you guys a law, and you're going to be satisfied. I'm going to feed you and you'll be satisfied. But here's going to be your problem. You're still going to go out there and you're going to start messing with other people. And you're still gonna go out there and try your best to keep making it okay to do so. And then you're not, and then through this though, eventually you will discover that you should have just been the people, the nation that you should have been the whole time. Because once again, the word people means nation. The United States is a corporation, not a nation. So you need to know what you are as a nation. Stop asking for reparations and you're not a people. I didn't say you don't deserve it. Hear what I say. I didn't say you don't deserve it. You said manipulation. Everyone works from home now, but nobody wants to work. Why did everyone need a shot? Mm-hmm. And by the way, a lot of states and a lot of cities are starting to pay people back because they were wrong for forcing them out of their jobs. Right? Only those that stood strong, though. Those who didn't stand strong. You said we have been tampered with from a system foreign to us, and we have no knowledge. That's the R word, yeah. Because it started off with the mind, started with the spirit, started off with the pneumatical thought, which led into the psychology. By the way, the word psychology literally means the study or the logic of the soul. You know how I know that? Because the word psyche, Psyche, psyche in the Greek, it literally means soul. So all these people who keep telling you like this is they don't recognize what these words actually mean. You're using words in law in everyday life quite often without actually knowing what they mean and where they come from and what's the point of them. Thanks for your part of the community, Rob King. Right? Like they're throwing out legal terms at you and you have no clue. You go to a psychologist, the IST means they're proficient. So when you go to a psychologist, you're going to somebody who's proficient at the study of your soul. And you're going in there, some of y'all going in there believing there's no such thing as a soul. You already done been messed up, or you don't comprehend what a soul mean. And when you walk into their place of business, they're busy. They're busy in making sure that they study your soul. Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., you think it's a place. But Washington, D.C. is a territory. But if you look at it, even in Black's Law Dictionary, if you want to look up that definition, Washington, D.C. at one time was a territory, but it no longer is. Come on now. It was a territory, but it no longer is. So you don't even know the soul of the United States because the corporation is a person. So if it's a fake person, it's got to have a fake soul or a corrupt soul. You see? So you don't even know the psychology of the beast of the corporation called the United States. But you're busy talking about whether you should vote or you're talking about how to make it better, right? If there's a place that has an evil soul, then it operates in an evil manner. We talked about that last time. A lot of people try to reverse live, but we need to reverse evil. What do I mean? Evil is spelled EVIL. How do you spell live? LIVE. We need to stop living evil, EVIL, and reverse evil so we can live, LIVE. Like it's attached to each other. They have it in the spelling. This is why you speak spells and don't even know it. And then you think somebody's being hypocritical. You think somebody's being too mystical or something. This is very practical. It's very mystical to believe that a government that tells you in law that they're not a corporation, that takes a lot of faith. Matter of fact, I would even go to a point to where I would say it's getting on the level of almost deciding to not be ignorant, but deciding to be stupid. I'm saying you're not there yet, but I'm saying it's almost getting to that level. If I for sure know by law, by United States code, they tell me that they're a corporation and not a country, not a state. They're a corporation, they're a board, or they're a negotiable instrument. But somehow, some way, I'm still trying to believe. And by the way, I also know they're a corporation. So if they're a corporation, that means that by law, by fake law, by the legalese, but by their law, so to speak, that means that they're also a person. So if they're a person, guess what? Guess what they get to own? Because you can't be a slave master without being a person. So once you're a person, you get to own artificial persons. You might call those slaves. Oh, they don't like this today, Holy Spirit, right? Every devil in hell, right? Or they're not even in hell yet, excuse me. Every devil that's running around because y'all believe in your canon that, the devil's in hell because y'all watch too many movies and stuff. The Bible says that the devil ain't in hell yet. So he walking around every day and you need to see these people that are possessed and make sure you stop listening to them. Hey, how you doing? One love back at you, right? Right? Like I need you to recognize what's going on. You're missing it. You're so busy. Look, racism is real, but you're so busy only thinking it's black versus white when they're not all skin folk is kinfolk. Look, if you don't like black folk, I'm here to tell you, every white person that you think has your best interest at heart because they say they don't like black people, I'm here to tell you, a lot of them don't care about you. And every black person, just because that person got locks and they say they're going to make sure if you vote for them, they're going to do righteous by you, they don't work for you either. Oh, shoot. Gotta figure out what it is. I'm sorry, I lost TikTok. I'm going to repeat some of that. I don't even know where I lost them. Sorry, y'all. I was saying, you better be careful. If you think that every white person, not all skin folk is kinfolk, you think that somebody is white and they say they don't like black people, and you start rocking with that person, they don't care about you. And you think that all skin folk is kinfolk, and somebody got some locks and they look just like you or whatever, and therefore they're gonna make sure once you vote them in, they're gonna do something. They don't work for you. They don't work for you. This is the oath that they take. What is the oath again? What is the oath again? See, this is all going towards Washington D.C. Some of y'all don't even think I'm talking about Washington D.C. yet. Like I'm talking about Washington D.C. and you don't even recognize it because nobody taught you how this is, right? Hear what I'm saying, right? What is the oath? What did I say an oath was earlier? In case you missed it, let's get back into that real quick. You said I snap, praise y'all that the word is coming forth, right? An oath is not just a contract. It's what? It's a contract with who? It's a promise to who? What is an oath? An oath is a contract or a promise. Really, it's a promise. It's a promise to who? It's a promise to a deity. It's a promise to a God. God bless America. Who is America's God? Now we're getting somewhere with Washington, D.C. Right? Who is America's God? See, this is where you got to be careful. Y'all say God and don't even want to say Elohim. Somebody says, why don't you call him by his actual title, Elohim? Or you try to say Elohim. And you're like, no, God. God is because this person. God is because I call him Jesus. Even though that's not his name, I call him Jesus. I call him half man, half Zeus because even though I know Damasus is the daughter of Zeus, and Zeus is Zeus, and Pegasus is the horse of Zeus, but I call him half man, half Zeus because that's where the power is. I don't know. Like you're using terms and don't even know where they come from. Who is God? God is a Germanic term, meaning that you can make whatever you want to be God. And they're talking about somebody specifically because they're getting into some Masonic stuff. Elohim at Abba. For us, Elohim is Abba. So who is their father? Who's the father of your nation? Who's the father of your nation? Who do you declare as the father of your nation? Matter of fact, they lied to y'all. They said that he never told a lie, didn't they? Right? Let's before we get so spiritual and mystical, let's make it practical. Who did they tell you was the father of your nation? They said he never told a lie. While he was ripping the teeth out of your people. While he didn't even believe that women deserve rights. While he was going ahead and having babies with his slave women, while being married to somebody who was known as a brunette or what you call brunette. Prun en le français or brun in the French, because they don't call it French, they call it the French, right? If you speak the actual French, the actual language. And when you learn in the French, brun, what we call brun, B-R-U-N, it means brown. So an E-T-T-E is talking about ish. So George Washington's wife was brownish. In other words, she had Negroid features. So even then, it wasn't as simple as just black and white. But she was somebody that didn't like enough of herself and didn't want to be thought of as low as those who had darker skin. So she hid who she was. And George Washington, he even said so. Look at what he said. Go look up the burden of proof. It's not on me. It's on those that came before me. Look up what he said. He said he married her because she had just as many slaves as he did. He didn't marry her because they were going to work well together because he actually had great affection for her. No. He married her because he was going to double up. I mean, better reason than some of us. Some of us marry people because they got cakes. And they get mad because they got cakes, but they have nothing to spiritually feed you. You wanted that physical cake, but you ain't got no spiritual cake. I'm just saying. Right? Like, but you don't comprehend. See, George Washington is the father God. See, your culture, your culture's on the line. Somebody got to start getting us back into culture. Somebody has to start reminding us. So like we got to start getting into actual conversation of who we are, of whose we are, of what we were before somebody took away knowledge of ourselves. You talking about the Bible and all this stuff, you don't even know. Every time they say God, it's not even God is whatever you want it to be. They lied to you, they made it up. Whenever they say Lord, they made it a point to put the capital L in there, or all caps, or to put it and by the way, remember, once again, what did I tell you about all caps? All caps, Lord, right, is them trying to get you to go away from the actual person. So when you see Lord, Lord, capital Lord, they're talking about the actual Lord. When they have lowercase Lord, it's a Lord under a Lord. When they have all caps Lord, they're talking about they're not using the actual name. So they're getting you to say Lord instead of his actual name. His actual name is Yahweh, common law. Did you ever catch that? That's common law. All caps Lord is supposed to be Yahweh. Every time you say Lord God, that's supposed to be Yahweh Elohim. They are giving you straw men all throughout your Bible, and you don't even know because you don't care about culture, right? We don't care enough about culture. So you have Washington, the father God, and then guess who's the mother God is? Right? Because in their society, you always have a mother, father, God connection. And you have a mother, father, son, all three being God. And that's why y'all think about Father, Son, and Holy Spirit different than what you're supposed to. You think about Father, Son, Holy Spirit the way that you do about Ishtar. That's why a lot of you celebrate Easter and don't even realize that it came from Ishtar. But who is the mother God according to them? I say according to the Bible. Because the Bible don't say nothing about Martha being, I mean, not coming against you, right? But just say it. The Bible doesn't say nothing about Martha being mother God. It talks about Ishtar if you know the names. And if you know Nimrod for sure, then you know who Nimrod's mother/wife was. Right? And if you just read a couple of the books, you'll discover easily who that is. But who is the mother God according to the United States? I didn't say. See, y'all thinking I'm just making it up. We're showing you what the United States, and I'm gonna show you what Washington D.C. is. You said Easter is not a pagan holiday. This has been debunked several times. This is sensationalist nonsense. Okay, question for you: where does the term Easter come from? Is Easter a Israelite term? Is it a Hebrew term? Just real quick, right? Like number one, interpretation is key, even by law, which is why a lot of people like to be lawless. Um, Easter is not an Israelite term, so it's not an Israelite holiday or holy day. That's what a holiday is. Number one, right? I mean, we know this. It's pretty easy for us to see. So, once again, I'm not gonna get. Oh, it was debunked. No, no, no. It's not debunked. Easter comes from Ishtar. Ishtar is where you get the eggs and you get the money from. Ishtar is the goddess of fertility, right? That's why a lot of different versions of Ishtar will either have bunnies or they'll outright have a woman with a bunch of nipples, right? It's because she was somebody who had sex all the time, had a bunch of babies, right? And then the egg is the fact that she said that she came from the moon in an egg. So you can try to say it's debunked or whatever, whatever. It's not debunked by anything that's cultural to us or those of us who actually know where this stuff came from. So if you want to debunk it according to something to be able to say all stuff there, but we know what this stuff is. And we can come back to it at some point, right? But right. And when people say it's been debunked. Been debunked by who? You hear what I'm saying? You always got to think about that. By who? And once again, we're giving you receipts. It's interesting the person saying I'm saying all the stuff that's bad about Ishtar and this and that or whatever, but you tell me where I'm lying so far. Go look at all the stuff we've listed, right? Go look at all the stuff I've been listing and showing. We've been on here for a while. If you want to look at the recording, I don't know why people don't do that. Well, I don't get where you're getting this from. Hey, we're recording right now. You can go look at our YouTube channel later on and catch up. You know what I'm saying? And look at these things we've been talking. This is a whole series. We do series hours at a time, each session, and we've been on for years and years and years and years and years. There's tons of places you can go to look at this stuff. Yeah, there you go. Because her son Tammuz. Her son Tammuz came out of that. Yep. Tammuz came out of Nimrod. Supposedly Nimrod. Nimrod was already dead, but she lied and said Nimrod, when he died and was killed, and his body was separated and all that by Shem and those that worked with Shem to kill off Nimrod. She said, well, Nimrod actually came from the sun, or went to being the sun deity, the sun god. And so she said, he's the sun god, and I'm a goddess that came from the moon in an egg. And then what comes out of us is the chosen one, because everybody knew Genesis chapter 3. As much as people want to act like that's a new thing, we knew about Genesis 3, right? Genesis 3 that said that, hey, because you messed up, Adam, you got to till the ground. Eve, you got to deal with pain, and you'll pine for your husband, but your husband won't give you the affection he's supposed to. That's a curse that husbands need to get together, right? And then it says after that, it says that then there's going to be a child that's going to be born, right? Out of the woman. The woman actually represents Israel. When you get into Jeremiah chapter 3, you get into Revelation chapter 12, it's clear as day, right? It's the same woman. And it says that this woman's going to give birth, right, to a child, and the child will be bruised in the heel. He'll be nipped at a little bit, and something seems like stuff's going to happen where he's not going to be able to make it, because a snake biting you in your heel, especially being poisonous, you would think a baby's not going to make it. And it seems like the baby's going to be dead, but ultimately the baby will what? Bruise him in the head. He's going to take him out by the very act that he thinks he's doing to do whatever, right? And so everybody knew about this. And all these people kept trying to do what? Make themselves false gods or false equivalencies or what we would call straw men. And there are still people today doing their best to worship the straw man, right? But getting back into this, who is the goddess of Washington, D.C.? The goddess of Washington, D.C., very simply, you know her name, you just don't think about it. But the goddess of Washington, D.C., very simple. The goddess of Washington, D.C., her name is Columbia. Plain as the nose on your face. You said the Thomas Bible states that in the beginning of their study Bible, giving homage to King. Mm-hmm. Right? She's the goddess Columbia. By the way, people say, nope, see, you're making stuff up. No, look it up. The woman who's on top of the Congress building. January 6th, 2021, everybody's still talking about it like it was yesterday, right? The woman on top of the building, her name is Columbia. Matter of fact, she's not just there. She's posted all around the place. Matter of fact, she's not just there, but even technically, even though that's not really what the French artists wanted it to be, they kind of call the Statue of Liberty Columbia too. And that's why y'all also see in those movies, remember there used to be movies, and there would be the woman who would be sitting there and she'd have the light in her hand, and then she'd have the book as well sometimes. That's Columbia. It's called Columbia Pictures. There's a lot of stuff called Columbia. There's a lot of corporations called Columbia. There's a lot of places all over the world that have Columbia written on it. They're worshiping, it's a religion. And as much as y'all think that religions, I don't want religion. I want relationship. Religion literally means a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. You better know what religion you're part of. Is everybody part of a religion? If you drink water like I am today and you do it every day, by definition, that is religious. We are all in the same religion, or at least we have a part of religion that we keep the same, which is what we believe in drinking water every day. Yes, I know. That's why I said the person who initially made the Statue of Liberty, that was not what they wanted, right? That's why the Statue of Liberty has the chains on there that you can only see from the helicopter. That's why the Statue of Liberty used to be copper. Now she's green, but copper is what? Copper is brown, right? Copper is brown, right? So at one point it would have looked something like this. Matter of fact, it would have been shined up, so it would have looked even better than this, but right? But before it became green, if you notice, this is slightly becoming green, especially when it's not really clean like that the way it's supposed to. But over time it's becoming green, but it actually went from like brown to actually being like dark, and now it's becoming green, right? So yes, so I comprehend what you're saying. That's why I made a point to say I know that's not originally what the French artist wanted it to be, because he wanted it to be something to show that, hey, black people can now be free. They've broken the chains. This is what America is, and America never wanted that to be what we were. Right? So that's why the Statue of Liberty is green, because she started off as copper, she was shined up, and then she became darker. And as you can see now, it goes from being darker to slowly you're going to start seeing some green pop up long enough. Like if I were to put water inside of this, and I just let the water sit in there for a long time, especially if I had it uncovered, unscrewed, it would get green. It would become green. That's what would happen. That's how that works. Right. But what they would now tell you is that more people want you to, they like to identify Columbia with her as well. Right. Now, it's Washington, District of Columbia. Now, here's a question for you. You ready? What do you guys think Washington, D.C. was originally made for? Because it wasn't a corporation at first. What do you think that Washington, D.C. was originally made for? What do you guys think that Washington, D.C. was initially made for? They don't teach us this stuff. We should know it, though. Should to control the people? Okay. I'm sorry for those that are on Facebook. Got overheated out here. I'm hoping that the other stuff doesn't get overheated. I might need to. You know what? I'm going to move us into the shade real quick. Even though it's going to keep getting worse and worse because that's basically east. So it's coming our way. But give me a second. I'm going to move us down some. Hopefully the signal makes it over here. That's why I was a little closer. I'm already at the outskirts of the signals. So if the signal starts messing up, y'all just let me know. And we'll do what we got to do. But hopefully y'all should be able to see me still. And it won't get too bad. Prayerfully. Try and see if we can keep this cool. So I lost Facebook because they said it's too hot. Said too much sun on the device. Okay. Hopefully we'll be all right. You said, how can we know something that was never taught? Exactly. That's why somebody got to start teaching. You said, I'm religiously taking these vitamin supplements daily. Was it the Federal Reserve is run by the United States Post Office, most powerful blog or building in the country. Someone has to maintain records of all these certificates. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of us are not even aware how this stuff works. A lot of us are not even aware what's going on. So you have a lot of different things that are happening, that are taking place, that are being participated in. You have a lot of people that are talking about the religiosity or the religion of this, but a lot of people don't know what these terms mean, right? If the Bible tells you, like if you're going to use Bible as canon, the Bible is specifically telling you to stay away from this government or this beast type system. So the further we're going into, but once again, what is Washington, D.C.? What was it originally made for? I think that's where I was before I started moving this. So religion creates division. Once again, religion just means a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. Religion is not creating division. Well, some religions do and some don't, by definition. So I guess I could agree with you to a certain extent. Right? But your problem is not that the religion is creating the division. Right? Once again, like the problem that we're having is that we are really doing our best to not even find out what the Bible is talking about. The Bible tells you exactly what it means. Like we don't have to change the meanings of this stuff. But once again, what was Washington, D.C. created for? See, then we can have proper conversation about it. We're not even having proper conversation because we don't even know why Washington, D.C. was made in the first place. It's very difficult to try and make sure that you get better or something if you don't even know why it was made in the first place. So once again, what's the question? See, if people go to all these other things, right? Why was it made? Washington, D.C. was created to make sure that the president of the United States would be able to control all the capital, right? All the capital of the federal government, while also having capital to work for him. And it was also created eventually down the road. It became exactly what the mindset was, which was to make sure that George Washington could be celebrated as your father God. If you don't believe me, if you don't believe what I'm saying, let me try to make it a little more plain for you. What is the White House? And yes, I'm going to talk about race, but it's not only about race. But you got to comprehend what they did using race. The only reason why we should talk about racism is to make sure that we comprehend that they're using it not just against us as a people still, but they're using it against anybody who doesn't comprehend that they'll make a slave out of you too. Okay? Before people go there. Before people go, oh, here you are talking about race, and race is a social construct and a colonial construct. Yes, I know. I need you to comprehend what happened and what's still happening to you and your children. And the reason why you're so busy, like, trying to tell me that racism is not a thing, that you won't even realize that they're using the same things they're using racism against you. Okay? So before somebody goes there, roll with me just for a little bit. I promise you, we're going somewhere. Okay? You said race was given to your identity at born, therefore it's a choice because it was out of race. Even the term race, like, I'm using what people know. If you look up the term race, race is not something that even belongs to human beings. It belongs to animals. All right. See, I'm not gonna go deep into this because that's not really what we're talking about today, right? But I know somebody's gonna get caught up on it, so let me just squash this. If you guys know anything about race, look up, or if you don't know what I'm talking about as far as race, because the word race means competition. If you and I got in a race, right? Like, if my son, who knows about black, the white, and social construct, colonial constructs, and all that, he still doesn't really comprehend the term race, even though he knows about this stuff, right? He's homeschooled, but he still doesn't really comprehend what it means because he thinks if I say race, his first thought process is what it should be for all of us, which is on your marks, get set, go. That's what race is supposed to be. Race is a competition. Racism, ISM, on any word means a system. So racism is a system in which competition is there. And you call it racism when certain people make sure that other people cannot have the ability to compete in that system. Right? That's what racism is. Right? That's what it actually is. You know, he said because he wasn't brainwashed, sure. Just like many of the people who are on here talking about race, because you think the human race is something that's real, but humans shouldn't be competing against each other either. Right? You think that race is something, but race belongs to animals, and the reason why they started doing that is because of somebody called Carl Linnaeus. Look him up. Carl, last name Linneaus, I believe. Carl Linnaeus might be Linaus, but I feel like it's Eaus, something like that. Carl Linnaeus is where you get racism from. Carl Linnaeus is somebody who studied animals and believed that all animals could be put into races because they supposedly compete against one another. After he said that, then he said, well, you know what? Humans compete against each other as well. And he said that certain humans are better than other types of humans. The way that he went was he had four humans. He had four humans. He said that there was the white race, there was the red race, there was the yellow race, there was the black race. He gave them Latin terms, of course, because the Latin terms, they help you to make sure, because everything that's Latin is supposed to be scientific in his culture. So, of course, he gave them all Latin terms. That's what he did. That's where you get your concept of race from. And by the way, he did that because he said that all these races came from different animals. So the white race, this is not my stuff, and I don't believe in it. And I don't say that just because you're white, you believe in it. I'm just telling you, a lot of these words that you're using, you don't know where they came from. So why do I have a Cash App in my bio? Because this is what I do. And also, too, it's stuff that goes to make sure people eat and make sure people get clothes, make sure people get education, make sure that people's bills are taken care of. And you know what? Like, I don't have a 9 to 5. I teach all day, every day. I have a university that we started. I make sure that I do stuff. And also, we're trying to get land. So, yeah, there's a lot of different things. I feel like if somebody's doing what it is and they ask for people to help out, if people want to help and donate, they can. We don't take payments, we take donation. If you want to donate to something we're doing, you can even tell us what you want it to go to, and we'll do our best to make sure that it gets exactly to what it is. It doesn't have to come to me at all. Right? Question to you is why shouldn't I have a Cash App in my bio? It's foolishness, right? You want people to give you all this stuff and make sure they do whatever, and then they say, hey, if you want to give something or donate to what we're doing, and then people are like, why do you have a Cash App in your bio? Why not? Anyways, where were we at? So that's what you think about race, where he said the white race came from this animal, the yellow race came from this one. I'm sorry, white race, red race, yellow race, black race, all came from different animals, right? That's what he taught. That's what he taught, was that they all came from different animals, right? Now you get somebody that comes after him. See, y'all didn't even hear about Carl Linnaeus. You know this next name, even though you've never really researched or studied him. You've heard about him. They told you some things that he said was real and true, and you just agreed with it just because, but you never studied him. So allow me to help you out with somebody that y'all have heard the name of, but you don't necessarily know what his belief system comes from. And guess what? By the way, he's a pastor as well. So we're talking about, once again, religiosity. We're talking about somebody's belief system, somebody's religion. Although people don't want to, they keep thinking there's separation of church and state. This is somebody's religion you're dealing with, and you don't want to act like racism is a real thing. I hope I still have the picture. There we go. So here's somebody that you've heard of and that you know more about, right? This is something that y'all learned in school, but never really learned what it was about. They just spit some stuff out to you, and you regurgitated it. You took the vomit that they spit it up, ate it, and then regurgitated it back for generation to generation to generation. It's called evolution. And this is actually missing part of the title, but it is what it is. We'll leave it here for you guys for now, right? Written in 1859 by somebody you're familiar with, Charles Darwin, who the only thing he went to school for was actually to be a preacher. That's what he got his degree in. And back then, you were a bachelor, right? Your bachelor's degree, you went to school as a bachelor. And so he went to school as a bachelor, and he basically played around. He did more stuff with microscopes and stuff, but he never actually went to any kind of scientific class. And then from there, he ends up, traveling around the world. And then he goes to this place, the Galapagos Islands. And then he says, oh, I see how stuff changed up, and I can see how what Carl Linnaeus wrote out is there. By the way, you can tell it's Carl Linnaeus, it's Linnaean, because if you look at the bottom, you'll see that it's from Linnaean. It's people who are from Royal Society, from Geological Society, and who are Linnaean in their doctrine. You learned about Darwinism, a system based off of race, right? And you don't know it because races are different animals. And Charles Darwin took it to the next level of what Linnaeus wrote out. And he said, hey, I'm going to take it to the next level. I want to make sure that y'all believe that not only did you come from there as far as whites, black, Asian, and Native American, but even those are different races as well. They come from different animals too. And now, what's the name of his book? His name is called, it's missing a part of it. It's really called The Origin of Species, the Theory of Evolution, or some would even say The Theory of Evolution, the Origin of Species. But I'll just leave what you guys can see on the screen right here. It's called, and this is written in 1859. What happened, what was happening in 1859? John Brown was being a white pastor, if you want to use that term, white. He was a white pastor who was being killed because he was standing up to his own religion and telling people, like literally, he was a pastor who got kicked out of his own congregation and was standing up and started fighting. Him and his children started fighting the Kansas Wars going back to 1856, right? Starting a fight that was going since 1776, which was always a fight about who was going to get to keep slaves and who was going to have to become capitalists, right? The British wanted to be capitalists. The Americans, so to speak, because the original definition of an American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. But the Americans, the people who became Americans and said, now we're the natives to here. We're not just the colonists, but now we're going to separate from you guys and declare we're the colonists while having slaves, or we're the natives. And we're going to say that we're going to enslave the natives while saying we're the natives, right? That's how their law works. But once again, this is written around the same time. 1859 is when it's clear Abraham Lincoln's going to win. And that's when in December of 1859, you start seeing all these groups are starting to leave. I'm sorry, 1860, excuse me. You start seeing all these groups are leaving because they know Abraham Lincoln's about to become president. And they keep saying that God has ordained slavery because that was the religion. I'm not saying it's yours. I'm not saying if you're white. I'm not saying if your ancestors did it, it's your religion. I'm just saying be careful of what religion you're learning from and who's directing you, because you might swear up and down you're not partaking in it. You can be black and swear up and down you're not partaking in it. You can be Asian. You can be Moor. You can be Israelite. You can be Yasharal. You can be Anunnaki if you want. Right? I don't care what you want to call yourself right now. I'm just telling you, be careful, because you might be following some doctrine that's a lot deeper than what you think it is. Study to show yourself approved, and then bring it before Elohim that you can be a workman and need not be ashamed. So what's the title of Darwin's book? Darwin's book is called The Origin of Species, by means of natural selection. So what does natural selection mean? See, because you think that natural selection is actually the nature of the Most High. Or the nature of what's there, or scientific nature. No, that's not what they're saying here, right? They're saying the origin of species by means of natural selection, or The preservation of favored races and the struggle for life. The preservation of favored race. In other words, not only are there animals that come from races, this is what you read in this book. Not only are there animals that come from races, but I'm going to take what Carl Linnaeus said to the next level. There are people that come from different animals, right? And there's a whole bunch of them. And I'm going to list which ones are best and which ones are worst. There's actually pages he does this in, by the way. And then he also says, I'm going to make it a point to show you that the ones on top, they're going to have to what? Be preserved. So when we do certain things to certain races, when we treat Caucasians, because y'all think Caucasians are all, you think white people and Caucasians are all the same. First of all, there's no such color as white. That's a new thing. White used to mean um, white used to mean pale, used to mean see-through. It used to mean it used to mean it used to mean bright. It used to mean like clear. It used to mean reflective, but it was never a color until somebody started teaching you this doctrine. Now you got to have white people, but there was no such thing as white people at one point, right? Because somebody who is white, they have what's called melanin. Even if they don't have as much melanin as we do, they have something called melanin. So if you have something that is called melanin and translucent as well, right? So you have something in you called melanin. Real talk. If I have melanin in me, then that means I'm alive. So you can't be white and have no color and be alive at the same time, right? But that's not what they taught. They thought that they started teaching people through their religion. That's what a religion is, right? That's doctrine. Doctrine doesn't mean just a spiritual thing. Doctrine means anything that a group of people lift up, even by law. So if you're Republican and you believe certain Republican values and you lift those up no matter what, that's Republican doctrine. If you're Democrat, you've got Democrat doctrine. If you're a communist, you have communist doctrine. The origin of species by means of natural selection or the preservation of favorite races in the struggle for life. Right now, how many people, honestly, like just keep it a buck with me. Honestly, how many of y'all knew that? I mean, you went to school, right? Your school is supposed to teach you all this stuff. Aren't your schools accredited? Why did nobody ever tell you that's the actual title of the book? Right? And once again, this is not all white people are evil. This is not all black people are pure. This is not the reverse. I know that all skin folk and kin folk. So I can't say that just because you got locks and just because you got dark skin means that you automatically on my side. And I can't say that just because, if you notice, I was talking about Pastor John Brown. Pastor John Brown, if you didn't get it, he himself is what you would call today a white man. And he died fighting for us. You said, so what school did I go to? What degree do I have? LOL, where's my proof? Where's my evidence? I literally just gave you proof about what I was talking about on here. I've been given a whole bunch of proof. If you'd like to go and look at the recording, you're more than welcome to. I'll say this though. Yeah, I went to seminary. I went to Zion Temple of the Apostolic Faith Bible School and seminary. I've gone around the world. I've gone to Harvard. Juilliard was more for music, but whatever. I've taken a lot of classes at Harvard. I was in the United States military and got a lot of stuff as far as leadership, traveled, was able to sit at the feet of chaplains. I've sat down with many different people who were rabbis, whether it be rabbis of the Jewish faith or rabbis of those that are opposite in belief system. At the end of the day, though, I'm talking about culture. I'm talking about where I come from. I actually know where I'm from. And I can speak to these things because I've read scrolls. I've seen scrolls that exist that you're just going off of the English version of it and don't know how to read. Now, if you want to know if it's the truth or not, study to show yourself approved. But there comes a point where that's why I said you got to become the master. See, a lot of people are out here trying to get you to come down off the throne or to say this and that or whatever. I'm on the throne for a reason. See, people want you to come off the throne because they're not ready for this. I don't speak with, I don't have the sense of commoners. I don't have common sense, and neither should you. You're kings, you're queens. Stop having common sense. If this was common, then people would know this. If this was common, it takes Yahshua HaMashiach to ensure that I'm authorized to be a preacher, right? And Romans chapter 10, right, after I get past verse 9 and 10, which everybody stops at, verses 13 through 15, actually through 16, tell me this. Anyone who calls upon the name of the Lord, they shall be saved. But how can one be saved if they don't believe? And how can one believe what they haven't heard? And how can one hear what isn't being preached? And how can one preach if they're not sent by the Most High? For how beautiful are the feet of those that walk in the way, followers of the way. Verse 16 goes back to Isaiah. So who shall believe our report? This is not everybody's report. This is not for everybody, especially for those that won't even simply research. I'm not giving you anything you can't look. Once again, look this up. 2828 USC, that stands for United States Code, 28 USC 3002 15A. 28 USC 3002 15A. And when you look it up, that's United States Code. Look up and see if the United States is in fact a corporation and not a country. If it is, then obviously you've been taught something wrong. If you don't know that what the United States is telling you, the United States says themselves, we are not a country. You believe it's a country. Is that not beast-like behavior? Do you not know that's not beast-like behavior? The United States, by their own admission, in their own code, in their own law, they say that, yeah, we're not a country, we're a corporation. You could literally look that up right now. And instead, what most people do is argue. You know why? Because you've been taught that it's better to argue against the truth than to live in righteousness. You want to be right. You don't want to be righteous. I'm done trying to be right. I don't need to be right. I want to be righteous. I don't need to be right. Y'all got it. Y'all want to be right? Be right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm done. Long time ago. I retired from being right a long time ago. I don't have to win an argument with my wife. I just want to be righteous. If I'm righteous, who cares if I'm right or not? At the end of the day, she'll see it. She'll say, okay, let's roll. And vice versa. Same thing with her. She ain't got to win no argument. She just keep being righteous, being a wife. And as her husband, I'll take notice and I'll say, okay, baby, let's move. We submit ourselves one to another. You're also busy trying to make sure the other person submits to you. You want to be right. So if you want to be right, you can win. I'm not worried about winning because ultimately we've already won. You hear what I'm saying? Ultimately, we've already won. Righteousness is already done. Because my righteousness is as filthy rags. The one who really has righteousness, who has cornered the market on righteousness, the only one who can even say that, he already won. So I'd rather just do what he said, right? So let's deal in truth. So let's deal in truth with this corporation. Back to Washington, D.C. You see, and people are so quick, like, you could just look this stuff up. Once again, what is the White House? Let me get back to that. What is the White House? What is the purpose of the White House? Now that we've dealt with race, and you see that race is not even what y'all think it is, but y'all are still fighting about races because they literally are making you fight about races. You are actually having racist conversation and connotation to your conversation because you're busy in races. What is a race? A race is a competition. They got you in competition. Stop competing with each other. If you want to get rid of racism, then stop competing. But see, capitalism says that you must compete. So you'll never get out of racism because you don't want to get out of capitalism. But once again, what does the word White House mean? See, stop competing with me. Answer the question or think with me. Let's think together. Amen. Nothing righteous shall be upheld. Withheld. I'm not. How you doing? I'm a Rakan, right? Right. What is the White House? What was it made? How you doing, Pamela? Thank you for being on with us. What is the White? Okay, before we get into Washington, D.C. and the 3 stars that we talked about with the Vatican, with London, with America, we got all that, right? What is the White House? Not trying to come at you. I'm just trying to say, what was it created for? I gave you the answer already, but roll with me, right? Let's get back to that. What was the White House created for? You said it's a building that's white. Okay. Yeah, we can start there. Symbolism. All right. What is the White House created for? What else can we say? Somebody said keep records. Okay, you can keep records in the White House. What did George Washington get Washington, D.C. and put a White House on it for? Control. Okay. A place for the president to live. Okay. Why is the president? So when the president lives there, what is the point of that White House being what he lives in? Because couldn't the presidents of corporations don't have to always live in the corporation's house. They can go other places. Symbolism, okay. Freemasons, all right. Safety, okay. Anybody ever been to Washington, D.C.? Anybody ever lived in Washington, D.C.? Anybody ever been on the train in Washington, D.C.? Anybody ever been on WMATA, right? On the metro there, D.C. Metro? Okay. If you've been on the train, anybody ever been on the orange line? I think it's orange. It might be orange and blue, but I think it's orange. Anybody ever been on the orange line going going to the stop where George Washington University is? You're born there? Okay. Anybody ever been on Orange Line? You get off there. I don't know if it's still there now, but it's the last time I was there in that area, George Washington University. They got a Whole Foods over there. They got a couple apartment complexes and all that stuff, right? When you come up on that station, anybody know what the name of that station is? Oh, yep, thanks, babe. The name of that station is called Foggy Bottom. It's Blue Line? Okay, maybe it's Blue Line. I thought it was Orange Line. Maybe it's Blue. Orange and Blue Line are the same, and then eventually they split up, right? So maybe it's Blue. Matter of fact, I think you're right. Now that you say it, I feel like GW is Blue. I don't know. I can't remember. I used to use Blue to go the opposite direction, like towards Largo Townsend and stuff like that. So I don't really know. It might be blue and orange. It might be blue or orange, whichever one it is, right? But you're going in that direction. When you get up, but that station is called Foggy Bottom. Do you know why that metro station is called Foggy Bottom? Do you know why that's called Foggy Bottom? See, we just think stuff is random. It's called Foggy Bottom because Washington, D.C. is swampland, right? You might not see the swamp anymore because people have built on it, but Washington, D.C. is nothing but swampland. And that particular swampland, Foggy Bottom, in Washington, D.C., or right outside of Washington, D.C., technically, right? That was where the slaves lived because the White House was a manor. It was the slave, it was the slave, it was the manor, it was the slave master's house. And so the slaves lived in Foggy Bottom. And the overseers, once they got into Washington, D.C., would check them. That made sure that they came in. Yeah, I saw you saw Slayer. I'm sorry. There's a bunch of comments and things like that, and we were on more than just one platform at the same time. So I apologize if I can't catch everything. I'm not the most high, but thank you. If I miss your comment, stuff in the chat, please forgive me for my humanity. Sometimes it works great for me. Sometimes it doesn't work so great. But I thank you, right? I apologize, right? If I try my best to catch as many of them and stop as many times, but also too, if especially when I don't have anything to charge my stuff with, I only have a limited amount of time as well. So I got to make sure, even though we go for a long time, I got to make sure that I'm obedient to the time. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you, right? So here we go, right? So you had slaves that were living out there in Foggy Bottom. The slaves, guess where they had to operate, and guess where their job was, their toil was. Guess where their 9 to 5 was? Where do you think it was? Come on, somebody. Right? We're gonna make it live. The system is sus. Why don't they tell us this? They had to either work at the White House or in Washington, D.C. The White House was the manor, and the slaves operated in Washington, D.C. So all the food and all the land and all that stuff, they made sure that people could eat off it. They made sure that they helped to build some of the stuff that you guys call these great things down. You're like, man, nobody knows who built this, and nobody knows. We know who built it, just like they talk about with the pyramids. We know who built it. So Washington, D.C. was a plantation. And Washington, D.C. is actually a lot less than what you think it is as well. Georgetown University, well, that's a little further out than the National Mall, but yeah, Georgetown University, if you even know how that was built through some nuns who basically wrote family members sent them slaves, and they were able to, trade the slaves and use the slaves to be able to build what's now Georgetown University. So at Georgetown, that university actually came out and apologized for it. So it's not something I'm making up. You can actually look up George Washington University's apology to Black people. But Black people still go there. Can't wait to make sure that they're taught there. Can't make sure that they have this Roman Catholicism, which is used to be able to make sure that they ensure that stuff is there. And once again, the Vatican, Roman Catholicism, England, you're dealing with the King of England and all that stuff, London, and then Washington, D.C. These are all three city states that work together. That's why on your flag in Washington, D.C., if that's where you are, taxation with that representation, well, you get taxed, but you're not getting taxed by who you think it is, because you're getting taxed by the owners of Washington, D.C., who are over the corporation of the United States. You're getting taxed by London, getting your money going back to the king, and you're getting taxed by the Vatican, the Pope. Right. But anyways, you go back to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., you have a manor on it. It's called the White House. And then around the White House is the plantation. And the Washington, D.C. technically is just a national mall. So you missed it. You thought that Washington, D.C. was this. No. The Washington, D.C. is technically just the national mall. Yeah, the national mall is a little bigger than what you think it is. But technically, for real, national mall is really the main part of it. But hey, this is how it happened. A lot of people don't know this. See, and you think, once again, people think we're making this up. George Washington, what does George Washington have in common with really like probably 10 out of the first 9, 10 out of the first 16 presidents, or 15 even, because Lincoln's the 16th. So we could just say 15th because that's Taylor. But what are all these presidents, especially the first 4 out of 5, if you start with George Washington as your first president, which in all actuality, he's not the first president, right? But what is it when you deal with Washington, D.C., right? If you say 1789, 1791, whichever one, you're dealing with America becoming the corporate, or becoming a United States of America becoming a thing, right? And given permission by Morocco, the Sultan there, right? By Moors, giving permission, right, for America to be sovereign. Even though we could say technically the sovereignty was already kind of put out there in the Treaty of Paris in 1783, which we can get to in a second. But you got to recognize there's something that the first 4 out of 5 presidents, if you start with George Washington and many other presidents after them, that they have in common. Do you know what they are? What do these presidents, these first 4 out of 5 presidents, have in common? If you start with George Washington as the first one, all relatives, true. I'm looking for something else though. That's very true, right? Because all the presidents, except for one of them that have ever existed, they're all connected by family, all connected by blood, right? Masons, okay. Looking for something else in particular though, that people don't even look at. And technically, when you get into the number 2 and number 6 one, who are family, right? John Adams and John Quincy Adams, basically John Adams, the father, John Quincy Adams, the son, right? Only father son, well, his first father son combination before George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush. They were Virginia slave owners. There you go. They were Virginia slave owners. Why is that important to know? Why is that important to know? A couple reasons. We can go, but we're starting to run out of time because I'm starting to run out of battery life. So we won't go extremely in depth on it. But why do you think that's important to make sure that we take mental note of, that these were Virginia slave owners? Why do you think that's important? First of all, what was the fight against? I said it earlier. What was the fight against the British against? You were taught that the fight against the British was the Revolutionary War. But no, it's not Revolutionary War. That was a civil war. That was them fighting against their own people, right? The only reason why people call civil wars revolutionary wars is when a certain side wins, then they say it was revolution. When the other side wins, they say it's civil. It was over our civilization. It was over our civility. It was over the way we do things. No, it was right. But that was a civil war. That was between their family. That's right. It was about slavery or capitalism. That's what it was about. Don't let nobody fool you. The British were starting to realize that chattel slavery wasn't getting them funds that capitalism could get. And so the British were starting to be like, yo, we're just going to dive into capitalism, right? And they said, hey, you guys are going to start paying us taxes because we need more money to do this stuff. We've been letting y'all roll without doing taxes. And when we go away from this, the monarchy really didn't have the power you think it does anyways. It's more of a figurehead thing, but the monarchy didn't really have the power. Anyways, Parliament was like, yo, we off that. Let's go ahead and get into this capitalism thing. And those that had slaves fought against it. That was what you call the Revolutionary War, 1776, right? Now, guess what? There's something called three-fifths compromise. Y'all think that that means that you were three-fifths of a human being. Three-fifths compromise existed before you even went under that. This is what happened with the three-fifths compromise. You ready? Three-fifths compromise said that you had the South, you had the North. The South had more land and had more property than the North did. So they came to a compromise. Monroe actually came to the compromise where basically they said, hey, all right, you guys will pay 60% of the tax. The North will pay 40% of the tax. That's how that worked, right? So you got three-fifths compromise. After three-fifths compromise happens, then the North started saying, well, what about them slaves down there? Y'all don't pay taxes on them. We paying taxes on ours. Why don't you pay taxes on them? They said, well, we don't pay taxes on them because they're not a person. They're artificial persons by law. The North said, well, we paying taxes, you got to pay taxes. So the South said, okay, fine, we'll put it on the three-fifths compromise. We'll pay 60% of the taxes on slaves. Y'all pay 40%, but we're only going to pay them as property because they never considered you to be a human being. That's why when it says we the people never meant you. You know what I'm saying? You think when it says we the people of the United States, they're talking about you. They were never talking about you. This is why you have to make sure that you are considered to be a non-citizen national or that you become a private sovereign rather than being a public citizen. The public citizen belongs to the country, belongs and really, well, again, the United States by law, right? 28 U.S.C. 300215A. The United States is not a country, it is a corporation. A corporation by law is considered to be a person. That's why if you go to jail, according to the 13th Amendment, the 13th Amendment never got rid of slavery, correct? The 13th Amendment didn't get rid of slavery. The 13th Amendment said that if you get arrested, you can be treated as a slave, which means now the corporation of the United States, if you get thrown into prison, they get to go ahead and have ownership over you because by law or by this legalese or by this corporative, this straw man, a corporation is a person. So the person, the corporation of the United States, gets to own you, the slave that's in prison. Right? Y'all think we're just making it up. Go look at the 13th Amendment. Tell me I'm lying. Go look at the 13th Amendment, look it up for yourself, and you tell me where the 13th Amendment says that slavery was abolished. It's still on the books. You're moving as if slavery's not real anymore, but it's still on the books. You hear what I'm saying? You're moving like slavery isn't real anymore. It's still on the books. You know what I'm saying? You are a slave. Matter of fact, why do you pay taxes? Anybody that pays taxes is in debt. Anybody that's in debt is a slave. What do you have? You have a birth certificate, the birth certificate that you still use and everything, and you still sign up for and all that stuff, and the social security card, which by law you're not even supposed to use to identify yourself, right? And if you use it to identify yourself, especially if they're expanding your credit or doing a credit search, you should be able to get something without a down payment because it's illegal to do. This is why if you try to go get a job, they give you the A, B, and C section because you can't use the social. You can't force somebody to use a social security card. Matter of fact, when you get your bank account, you don't have to use your social security number. You could just start your own business and have an EIN and use that instead of your social security number because you're not supposed to be forced to use it. All that we keep teaching over and over and over again. People think I'm making it up. That's part of the corporation. You are a slave, right? That number is attached to slave. Like when you go to prison, when you go to jail, and they say your number instead of your name, that's what your social security number is. It's the same thing. They ain't doing nothing new. It's the same thing, the same government. They made it legal, 13th Amendment. As long as we arrest you, we can't say because you're black we'll enslave you. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and let you go out there. We'll do the 14th Amendment, though, because you're starting to get land and we gave you some reparations and stuff. We're going to use the 14th Amendment to say that if we happen to catch you on our land, or if we can somehow get your land to become our land again, we'll say that you have to automatically be a United States citizen instead of being a freedman. You used to be called freedmen and not United States citizens. That's why you can't get reparations, because you don't even know who you are as a people. The people who deserve reparations are freedmen, not black men, not African Americans, not Negroes, not Americans. Even though Native Americans technically should get them. And guess what? You don't even like your Native American side. And the Native Americans have been taught to get into this whole thing. At least people who think they're Native Americans. A lot of them are. Some of them are $5 Indians, right? They know what I'm talking about. They know the difference, right? But a lot of them have been taught to go ahead and get into the whole thing of bloodline and percentages and this and that. So now you got that blood quantum thing. Yeah, that quantum language. You got all this blood quantum and that one drop rule. It's the same thing. Washington, D.C. was made to ensure that those of you who were considered to be under the one drop rule, to make sure that y'all would be enslaved. And then they turned around and did it to every single one of y'all. They did it to the people who they said weren't even people. And by the way, when they say we the people, who were the people? Who was the nation? Who were the ones? Who were the persons who were allowed to vote? Only white landowners. And not all of them could vote anyways. So only about 6% of the population in 1789 or 1791, whichever one you want to fight about, only 6% of the population could vote anyways, which meant that 94% of the persons who existed at the time that the Constitution was written or rewritten, 94% were not even allowed to be considered to be part of the nation. Washington, D.C. was not created to be a beacon of light or a beacon of hope. It was created to make sure that the person who was the ultimate slave owner would be over there. Now, once again, I said Virginia slave owner. Why is that important? We just talked about the South. We just talked about how much a role that Virginia played in that. Well, here's something you might not know. George Washington, if you consider him to be your first president, here we go. George Washington, first president, he's what? He's a Virginia slave owner. All right. Who's next up? So George Washington, Virginia slave owner. Who's the third president? Thomas Jefferson, Virginia slave owner. Who's fourth? Madison, Virginia slave owner. Who's fifth? Monroe, Virginia slave owner. Now let's go into number 2, number 6. Who's number 2? John Adams, the father. Guess who he worked for? George Washington, who was what? Virginia slave owner. Who's number 6? John Quincy Adams. Who did he work for? Virginia slave owner. Right? Number 7, well, technically that's Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson wasn't a Virginia slave owner. He just happened to go to school in Virginia, but he was a Tennessee slave owner. Number 7. Let's not forget Polk. And if you skip all the way to Taylor, I told you that this is out of the first 15. And presidents set precedents. Every president sets a precedent. And what I'm trying to tell you is what they did to one group of people, they do to everybody now. This is why you got to come out of the delusion of race, because once again, race is supposed to be a competition between animals. You are not animals. You are more than animals. And we should make sure that we bind together. And interestingly enough, animals come together more than human beings do. Yeah, that's what we said, right? He's not the first president. That's why we said, if you consider him to be your first president, right? But you hear what I'm saying? They have it to where you have less. They want you to live off of common sense. Commoners think, not kings and queens. Commoners believe that there's a such thing as race. Commoners believe that you shouldn't lie rather than having your children go to a school and have to lie to pass a test and say George Washington is the first president. I don't have common sense. I'm a king. This is why they don't like kings. They live as kings because you live in a republic anyways. United States Corporation, the United States of America even, is not a country anyways, as we've already shown, but it's a republic. You pledge allegiance. Say your pledge of allegiance real quick. See if I'm lying. And when you say the flag, by the way, replace the word flag with standard, because that's what a flag is. It's a standard. If you're a standard bearer, you're a flag bearer. Okay? Say your pledge of allegiance real quick. Tell me if I'm lying when I say that you signed up for a republic. They just didn't tell you. You pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the what? You see what I'm saying? I'm not making, like, people keep saying, oh no, prove it. I'm giving you contextual facts. I want to give you receipts. I want you to be able to use this. And whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you're in a democratic republic. And by the way, you're in a democratic republic, but you're not in a democracy. According to the Constitution, you're not in a democracy. You know how I know? Because the word democracy is not in your Constitution. Now, what I've heard, I haven't read all of the state's constitution, but from what I heard from people who say they have, it's not in any state constitution either. So you got to ask yourself, like, what are you identifying with? Right. Also, too, by the way, still talking about Washington, D.C. We never stopped. Right. Still talking about Washington, D.C. because you don't know what it is. Question for you. Does Congress have any jurisdiction outside of Washington, D.C.? They only have what you give them. Right. It's a fictitious entity. It's a corporation. It's a fake person. The only reason why anything that comes out of Congress is even thought about is because you agree. If you would not agree, think about it this simply. Everybody's talking so much about abortion, such a hot button topic issue that they bring up to get y'all to have dissension against each other and to never actually move towards getting anything done for real. Look at it. Look at this really carefully. This whole thing abortion popped up because we've got a black woman in. She's going to make sure that she fights for the right. She's not supposed to fight for your rights. She's supposed to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And y'all got so up in arms, and the other people got so up in arms, and y'all thought y'all won, and y'all thought that y'all lost. Look, just look at it real easy. You ready for this? Pretty much every state that before Supreme Court said that they were getting rid of what they said about abortion back in the day, pretty much every state that was anti-abortion is still anti-abortion. And pretty much every state that's pro-abortion is still pro-abortion. Right? Come on, somebody. Is that correct? Think about it now. Is that correct? Did things change? If your state was pro-abortion before all this stuff came up, or if your state was anti-abortion before all this stuff came up, did they change? Watch this. Whether you believe in LGBTQ plus marriage or not, before it was pushed and after it succeeded in your eyes or whatever, pretty much every state that was pro-abortion is still pro-abortion. I mean, I'm sorry, pro what they call, righteous marriage or Christian marriage or whatever is still pro that. And every state that was anti it or says that we want to include LGBTQ plus in it, they pretty much are the same people that did it. You know why? Because the states are countries and the corporation is not. So the states decide, right, whether or not they will abide by certain things, but they don't have to. That's why you have federal court and state court. Right? There's certain things, who cares if the federal government said it, because it don't affect the state anyways. And there's certain things, who cares if your state says it, because you're not dealing with the state, you're dealing with the corporation. And we don't comprehend it. We're arguing about stuff that has nothing to do with us or where we're headed or where we're trying to go. I don't care what your religiosity is. If you agree with my canonical viewpoint or not, who cares? I'm trying, in this instance, who cares? Because I'm trying to get you to comprehend. You on some stuff and you arguing stuff and you're against some stuff and don't even realize and recognize what it is. You've been taught to fight against each other over stuff that's not even your fight. Okay, Michigan changed up. Okay. And then here's the wild part about it. Even if the stuff does happen, here's something that's really gonna mess with you. Is it affecting you? This is when you got to become sovereign. This is when you got to start thinking about stuff as far as being private, right? Start setting up your environment where it don't matter. You know why I'm not worried about? What if somebody teaches my son about the new Black Lives Matter stuff that is a pyramid to basically get LGBTQ plus agenda around? And they basically finessed us and blah blah this and that. My son is homeschooled. I don't care. This is where I teach the children in the community. This is you're right. We have classes for this stuff, right? But I'm not sending my child into the world. If that's what you got to do for now, do what you got to do. But I'm not sending them into the world. That's not something that's for them. This is why on Saturdays now we started making sure we have Shabbat school, right? Right? Or we call it Shabbat, Shabbat Bet Sefer or Shabbat Ba'at Savar, right? Bring them over to that so they can learn some of this stuff, so they can be equipped, so they can hear some of this stuff. They can be challenged now as a little child, right? Challenge the mindset now. Get them when they're 3, when they're 4 years old. Let them see some of this stuff now, so that even if they have to go to school, they realize, okay, I got to pass the test for this, but I know it's a lie, right? Alaikum salam, right? So you know this, right? Like there's spaces we can do this right now, right? I'm not saying that we don't need the land. We still gonna get the land, but I'm just saying there's spaces we can do this right now, right now. We could do this. You said you don't want to scare them. I get you, right? But I promise you, it's better that they be scared, I guess, depending on how you teach, by the way, right? Like this stuff can be taught, but I promise you, children are stronger than what we think. You know, like there's a lot of people, hey, you know what, my child, they learn about Santa Claus, this and that. I know it's not real, but I don't want to go ahead and hurt their feelings. It's better that you tell them. I'm not saying be straight up one day, just rip Santa Claus in front of them or something like that. But it's time for you, especially if they go into church. Like I've seen so many children, you go to church and they singing Santa Claus is coming to town. Like something's not right. At some point, we got to start saying, we need to figure out as a community, not just by yourself. See, this is why it's important that we come together as a community. We got to start doing something where we say, all right, let's come together. Let's make this work. Like at some point, let's come together. Even if, look, I've done this before. Y'all know I've done this before. Even if it's, hey, can you set up some time? I'd like for you to talk to my children. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll be there. Well, you know, it's tough to do. Okay, let's set up. I set up one-on-one coaching. If you want, you need to be there. Now, I'm not going to do life coaching with your child, and you're not going to be there, right? For legal reasons, and all this for educational purposes only, right? Anyway, so I'm not going to be talking to your child just randomly, right? Like you're going to be there, of course, and you should be there. But what I'm trying to tell you is that yeah, like your children. Like people do this weird thing, especially too, because then something the world tries to get us to feel guilty about. The world tries to say, well, why are you trying to teach those babies? Why are you trying to show them only your way, this and that, or whatever? They should be able to do whatever they want. Well, that's you telling them your way too. Same way you're trying to say I'm brainwashing the children, you brainwashing them. You told them George Washington was the first president. You lied to them. You told them that Washington, D.C. was the capital of the United States, but every state is a country. Every country is a state. And every state has a capital. So how does Washington, D.C. have as capital? Matter of fact, Washington, D.C. is not considered to be a capital. It's considered to be a territory. And it's not even a territory anymore because Virginia and Maryland were asked to give up a certain amount of land to form Washington, D.C. Virginia asked for the land back a long time ago. Washington, D.C., though, never gave it back. Congress has no jurisdiction out of Washington. So Congress, as a federal government, as the corporation said, hey, we still want Washington, D.C. to exist. Why? Because they have no authority outside of it. Well, Washington, D.C. doesn't exist physically anymore, but it exists in a mental space. So Washington, D.C. is a place that's only authorized because we agree to let it exist. Right? Now, think about the damage that does to us, to where a lot of us grew up thinking that Washington, D.C. was a capital. We grew up thinking that the United States was a country. We grew up thinking, you see what I'm saying? Like this stuff does damage. Emotional damage, right? It does that. How many children grew up believing on the name Jesus, and a lot of preachers knew that wasn't his name, but still kept on putting that out there because they were afraid that they might get kicked out. But don't worry about each state breaking away. What you need to do is make sure that you come together as a people. That's when you can start talking about reparations. That's when you can have your own land. That's when you can start living like the Amish. That's when you can start doing whatever you want on your homestead. When you become a people. This is why your Bible says stuff like, if my people who are called by my name. Right? This is why it says, if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and repent, right? Turn from your wicked ways, fast, let go of some things, right? Then I can hear from heaven. And I will not just hear from heaven. Here's the next part. I will heal their land. What land mindset, even what virtual space are you putting together that he can begin a healing process? Right? It's all spiritual, whether you like it or not. I tell people, even if you don't agree with what I'm saying, even if you don't like the Bible, you should learn the Bible. You know why? Because the enemy uses the Bible all the time against you. You swear on it. You swear on it in court. Why is that? Because they want you a real man to go ahead and say, I believe in this with the power of God. Why do you have to have, why do you need affidavits or witnesses? Because you're supposed to have 2 or 3 witnesses. Why do you have an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judicial branch? Because you got Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Why do you have a a triumvirate? If you know triumvirate, that's wrong. You got a triumvirate, a modern one called these 3 city states: London, United States of America, or London, Washington, D.C., the Vatican. Right? Like, they're taking biblical principle and waxing you all over the head, and they violently doing so. The kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. And you have nothing in your arsenal to make sure that you live by any law that becomes common to your people, that you might be able to protect yourself. You have no standard that protects yourself. Matter of fact, everything attached to you, everything that you think is righteousness, is something that's attached to somebody else. In your mind, hear what I'm saying? In your mind, you think that if you send your child to somebody else's university, right, means that they're going to learn more. That's what you believe. Or you believe that if they go somewhere else to live and they get away from their community, they don't build it up, they're going to be better off. Stay away. Go to higher places. Hang up with people that don't look like you. Make sure that you support their businesses. That's what you believe, right? That's why Putin told you that Africa's a graveyard. He said Africa is a graveyard because the African man, he lives in another country. He sends his children's education is in Europe. His family's businesses are in the United States of America. He has China build his infrastructure. Right? He uses Russia as a shield, and says that Russia has never done anything racist, although Russia was in slave trade just like everybody else. Right? Look up Gannibal. Right? Look up Alexander Pushkin. Excuse me. Right? But then when he dies, he asks for his body to be taken back to his African nation. Said Africa's a graveyard. We give all of the things that would help our country to everybody else because we see more in everybody else than we see in ourselves. Right? And that's not just that part of the diaspora. That's not just that part of the diaspora, for real, for real. Like, you're going to go to Koreans to make sure that your hair gets did. Now, I don't know how you go to Koreans to make sure that black hair gets did, and how somebody else cornered the market on you. But you sure enough going to do that. Come on. Let's keep it a buck. Who is it that does the feet? Forgive me. Is it Vietnamese? At least, the idiosyncrasy, right? Isn't that who we think of? When you're going to get your feet done, you don't think about somebody look like you doing your feet. Now, if anybody should be rubbing oil into you, it should be somebody that knows how to make sure that stuff that helps you that's melanated. When you look for something that's going to heal your body as far as herbs, right? Like my wife and others on here, they know how to do that stuff. Right? Got her own business, functions, helps people all around the world. But you don't come to your own people for that. Guess where you go? You go to somebody who tells you that healing's not even allowed to be said. That's why even legally we have to tell you that my wife doesn't heal. We believe that she gives you tools that help your body to heal itself. Because the system that you're in is not interested in your healing. It's illegal for a doctor to tell you that they can heal you. The system is sus. So I had to tell you, well, dandelion's great for the blood, and dandelion's great for the skin, and dandelion's an officinalis, and you can eat any part of the dandelion from the rooter to the tutor, right? And you can make sure that the dandelion's going to help you with digestion, and dandelion this and that, but I can't tell you dandelion heals. Meanwhile, they'll tell you to spray the dandelion in your yard. You hear what I'm saying? They'll tell you to spray all the dandelion all over the place, and they'll tell you to spray. They want sprayed over here. They want to spray way over here. They spray all the stuff. They'll tell you to spray the dandelion. Thank you, Big Brother Thomas. Yeah, my wife is excellent in what she does. But they'll tell you to spray. They'll tell you to spray the dandelion, right? All up, and then that's gonna cause you cancer. And then guess what they do? When you go to get help with the cancer, they give you a modified version that has side effects of dandelion when you could have just ate the dandelion in the first place. Tell you to spray what Yah has created, natural law, so that you'll buy what's patented in substantive law. They tell you to poison what heals you, and then give a piece of what heals you to poison you further, but at least it helps you a little bit with how they initially poisoned you. We don't want to have an honest conversation about it, though. That's real talk. Isn't that crazy? They say I'm crazy. They say I'm weird. They say I should be taken off here. People say, where's your evidence for it? Look it up. Look it up. Oh, taste and see. See if what I'm saying actually is verified anywhere. And see if it's people that agree with me. See if it's people that like me, don't like me, whatever. I don't care. Contextual facts are contextual facts. Even people who are my enemies have to bow down to certain things that I say because I don't speak of my own. I'm not giving you opinion. I'm giving you context with facts. I'm not trying to say I'm better than anybody because I do that. I'm saying that you should be doing the same thing. Live your life by contextual facts. If there's no context to the facts, then it's not worthy of you. If there's no facts to go with the context, then it's not worthy of you. And if there's no facts to go with the context, at least their theory should be based off of some kind of law. That would make it more factual than not. Study everything that's spoken to you, including everything I say. Right? Matter of fact, let me finish up because, see, a lot of you don't even realize George Washington, right? Washington, the father god, Columbia on top of the Congress building, the mother god. But you don't recognize what's happening because George Washington, where his monument is, that's an obelisk. What's an obelisk? Somebody help me out. What is an obelisk? Do you know what an obelisk is? What's an obelisk? Do you know what it represents? Do you know what it represents? What is it? OBE? OBELISK? I guess that's how they spell it. An obelisk is a phallus. Oh, I missed the first part that you said, Keon, my bad. I don't know. I wasn't coming against you if that's how it came off. An obelisk is a phallus. It's a penis. That's what it is. Is that eggplant y'all be putting in y'all chat. Okay? So why is there an obelisk sticking up representing George Washington? Have you ever thought about that? See, this is stuff. It's just what we're just taught. Oh, this is the George Washington Monument. Everybody goes, ooh, I want to go inside it. Why would you want to go inside that? Just saying. We don't think where it is, right? And the obelisk is sticking up, right? It's sticking up, right? It's pointed at the top, and it's pointed because what? Because it doesn't have the skin on it, whatever. So it's supposed to be circumcised in a sense. So we know it's sticking up and it's pointing up. Now, why is it pointing up? See, once again, you start going to these places and you're not aware of what's going on. It's erect, right? It's pointing up. What's going on there? What are they trying to tell you? What are you being told every time you see it? But you don't see it, on what y'all would call your conscious. You see it in your subconscious. Oh no, it's not going up to the stars. It ain't going up that high. Although you could say the person that's it's going up to can go up to the stars. But say no, it's not going up to the stars. It's not going up to the stars. That thing is for the goddess Columbia, who's supposed to ride on it and get impregnated so that everybody that comes out of the Senate will be a child of the father and mother, or of the mother and father God. Right? Now, this is where it comes from. See, people go straight to paganism. This is Kemetic. They took a Kemetic story, they took Kemetic lore, which some of y'all would call Egyptian, right? But Egypt came after Kemet. They took Kemetic lore and they basically made George Washington and the goddess Columbia um, new gods instead of going off of the Netcher. The Netcher is what you're dealing with from Kemet. Right? Well, Columbia is on top, right? Columbia is on top of the Capitol building for a reason, right? So what's the old thing say, right? What's the story though? Initially there was a Netcher. You guys try to call them God, but remember gods, Netchers, Euregias, deities, deus, etc. Right? Elohim, El versus Al, all this stuff. They are different, right? Shangdi, etc. Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, etc. Like these are all different. Okay, they don't operate the same. We just make the assumption they operate the same because the people who have the power over you tell you to bow down to what they say and how they operate, but they don't all operate the same, right? But once again, so there was a Netcher. His name was Osiris, and Osiris was the main Netcher, right? And he was married to a Netcher who was took on the form of a female woman and also would take on the form of a bird. Sometimes would even walk around with her wings on, right, in the form, and it's still in the shape of a woman. Okay, so you had the Netcher, the king Osiris, with the Netcher, the queen, um, um, Isis, and what happens is the other Netchers didn't like Osiris, so they killed him. They pulled him apart one day, right? They made sure they got him, and they killed him, and then they cut his body up and they put it in all parts all over Kemet. And the wife one day, Isis, she's flying over and she's trying to find her husband, and she can't find him, and she realizes that there's pieces of him all over the place. So she begins to put him together because she wants to have children with him, and she hasn't had a chance to have children with him. So she at least wants to put him together for that. She can find every part of his body, but the one part that they knew that he would need, obviously to make sure that there was a child that would go on, would be his phallus. So they made sure they hid that very well. So she couldn't find his phallus, right? So she makes something called an obelisk, or like a dildo, a mock penis, and she put it in place of where his phallus goes, right? And and depending on what version of the story you believe, there's one or two ways you can go with it. Either A, when she rolled the obelisk, or when she put the obelisk in place before she wrote it, either A, he became a zombie, or he stayed dead, but he was able to at least ejaculate, right? Because if y'all don't know, like even if somebody after they're dead, because blood can still flow in certain ways, erection can still be there. And so even if the person is dead for a little bit, the person can still ejaculate, if you didn't know. So this is something they found out because there have been women who have gotten in trouble, believe it or not, who were undertakers and then got pregnant by dead bodies. Sorry, it is what it is. I'm just trying to show you this is not something that is just made up, but people know this stuff is there, right? So, anyways, so then she gets pregnant with his child, even though her husband is dead or is a zombie, whatever, but she gets pregnant with his child. That child that is born is called Heru. A lot of you guys have told or go by the name Horus, right? And you guys think that Yahshua Mashiach, or who y'all call the Christ, y'all believe that his story was copied off of Horus, but obviously that ain't the same story. Now you know what that is. That's that story that goes along lines of Nimrod, of Ishtar, Easter, and of Tammuz. It goes better with that one. But all these cultures that you're looking at, they have to have mother, father, God. They have to have mother, father, God, and out of them there always is a son. That's why, because they're going off of that whole Nimrod, Ishtar type piece. They have a different version of it. That's where that got copied from. Because Kemet got their stuff from Cush anyways. And if you know about who Cush is, right, not just the people of Cush, but the actual person, because whenever you call yourself a nation, you came out of somebody, right? So Cush is the person we came out of, just like California is called California because there was a queen there, a tribe, the leader of a tribe called Khalifa of the natives there, who were dark-skinned people, right? Extremely dark copper-colored people. So because they were the people of Khalifa, they were called Californian. Now the people who are Californian think that they are Californian just because. No, the natives who lived there, right? The original Americans who lived there, they came out of Khalifa. So that's why they called themselves, identified themselves as Khalifa, as Californian. Okay, so same thing, right? You're dealing with these people, Washingtonians and stuff like that. But anyways, so y'all think that Christ has the same story, but it's a whole different story, right? It's a whole different link up, right? So the people of Cush, Cushitic people, Cush was actually married to who y'all call Ishtar today. Cush got defeated when the whole thing went down with the Tower of Babel. Cush then leaves, and Cush's son Nimrod eventually takes power. Cush's wife Ishtar, right? So Mariah, who we now call Ishtar, she eventually leaves Cush for her own son Nimrod. And then when her son Nimrod died, she said he was the son. She said she came from the moon. And then after her son had died, she was still out here being promiscuous, had sex, again, gets impregnated again. When she gets impregnated, she calls his son Tammuz. And Tammuz, her son, dies in a boring accident, but she had told everybody Tammuz was supposed to be the promised son, the Messiah. So all these mother, father, God things, all the time you see a moon somewhere, all these time you see it like sun and moon and a lot of this symbolization, symbols like that, that's what you're dealing with. Even in the Roman Catholic Church, they deal with the same thing. They haven't stopped. That's why Easter eggs, very important. Even in the White House, they're going to have Easter eggs all over the place, correct? Just saying, you got to know where this stuff comes from. So anyways, George Washington, Father God. You have Columbia, who's supposed to be Ishtar, Mother God. Or, I'm sorry, in this case, George Washington, who's Osiris, right? And that's where the phallus comes from. You have Isis, who's now the goddess Columbia over here. And thanks, it's 1111, baby, if you're on. Thank you for showing that. And so now, as Columbia's flying around looking for parts of her husband, and when she puts it together, then she rides the obelisk, right? If you don't get it, by the way, and all the children that come out of Congress are Heru or Horus. If you don't get it, by the way, if you don't get it, testicles have something in them called sperm, but also we would call sperm something else. We might call it seed, correct? We might say the testicles have something in them called seed, right? If they have something in them called seed, where does seed reside? Seed resides where? In the ground. So the seed is in the ground in the obelisk. So the seed is in the ground and the obelisk is so the seed is in the ground, the obelisk is sticking straight up, is erect, right? That's where the seed is. The seed is in the ground and the obelisk is erect. It is what it is, right? The obelisk is erect. Why? Because it's the phallus. The obelisk is erect because it's the phallus. That's what we're dealing with. The obelisk is erect, right? The seed is in the ground. And if you didn't get it yet, still, and if you still didn't get it, see people talking about as above, so below. No, because see, if you still didn't get it, George Washington, he died of syphilis. What does that mean? That means that George Washington's phallus fell apart, fell off. It wasn't working right. He died not being able to have children. So Columbia is supposed to look for him and put him back together. The system is sus. They say I'm making all this up, but go look. Ask somebody, who is that woman that's on top of the Capitol building? Ask somebody when you see who they call blind faith in front of the Congress building. Who is that supposed to be? What's her name? Ask somebody. Go and ask somebody, what is an obelisk originally supposed to be? Matter of fact, do some research. Type in, when you get a chance, Google Egypt and obelisk. Just type in Egypt obelisk and see what pops up and see if it's not the same thing that now you see over at George Washington stuff. Look up 28 USC 3002 15A and see if the United States is a corporation or if it's a country. Obelisk. Obelisk. Thank you, Jay. Yep. And thank you, don't at me. Right? But just look it up. And if I'm lying, then hey, you have every right to be able to contact me, come on the next live, come on tomorrow, come on this evening, come to a class, do whatever, and tell me I'm a liar and I'm making this up and blah blah. Just research. I'm just saying, just do some research. Right? He was out there having sex with all of he was a commander in chief. I talked about this last time we were on. He's a commander in chief. As a commander in chiefs in England, right? They are commander in chiefs wherever they were in the world, representing the British Army. They took on the wives of the commanders and they had sex with them. And then they had sex with slaves, and then they'd have sex with the people that they conquered. He had syphilis, right? He didn't take care of his body. He didn't take care of himself. Don't forget, George Washington lost all his teeth by the time he was 30. That's why he had to rip teeth out of the mouth of his slaves. Oh, yeah, the reflection pool. Yeah, I mean, the reflection pool. Not only that, the reflection pool is interesting, too, because if you look at the reflection pool, you'll see that all over the place, you'll see pyramids of reflection pools and obelisks all over the place in the United States as well, right? The last place I went to that they had that, my son and I, we went over when we were in Tennessee. We went to the Memphis Zoo. As soon as you come in the Memphis Zoo, reflection pool, obelisk, right there, boom. Right, this is a religion. The system is sus. They keep telling you that I shouldn't talk like this. I shouldn't preach. I shouldn't bring the kingdom into it. I shouldn't tell you anything about the Bible, etc. And I'm like, yo, you talking bad about me? Like, tell your government that. Everything they do is about prayer. God bless America is an oath that's on your dollar. And money's not even real. But they got you out here making oaths to God, oaths with by law. An oath is a promise to God. By law. How you doing, Jeremy? By law. Look it up. Look up legal definition of oath. And you would discover that by law, oath is a promise to God. Well, God is a Germanic deity. If you want to talk about God, don't worry about God. Worry about Elohim. Elohim is real. God is whatever you want him to be. Choose ye this day who you'll serve. See, like I'm just trying. You said that I hate white people. Okay. You haven't been on here very long. Somebody educate him on the fact that I don't even believe that there's a such thing as race, let alone white people. Somebody educate that person. I ain't got time for that. Right? They can go listen to the recording. That's foolish. You see what I'm saying? That's foolish, right? But that's what happens with Washington, D.C. Where did he even get that mindset up? We just literally told you what Washington, D.C. was. And it's backed by who? It's backed by 3 city states. Washington, D.C., London, and the Vatican. By the way, look it up. None of them actually belong to the countries that they're in anyways. right? Question for you. Last question, then we got to take our leave because I'm my battery's about to go down and we want to do our shout out at the end. Question for you. Last thing. Right? Last thing. And if you want to know things about our belief system, feel free to go on our YouTube channel. It's called #FindKofi. You'll see it pop up in just a few minutes when we do our shout out at the end. If you're on TikTok, you'll be able to see it right there for yourself and be able to go ahead and look on the YouTube channel. And when you go there, you can actually click on the playlist. So don't click on where it says videos or home or anything like that. Click where it says, or uploads, click where it says playlist, and then type in the playlist. Look for Having Been Led as We Believe. And then you can look at all the different things that we talk about. Look at something else called Q&A, or question and answer, or frequently asked questions, FAQ. We have all that stuff on there. We're working on writing it out too, so we can make sure, because we don't really, we're starting to do membership, but I was like so anti the term, but I need to realize our membership doesn't have to look like everybody else's. So we're working on writing it out too and stuff, but you can go right there to those platforms and be able to look it up for yourself. Okay. All right. And be able to find all that stuff. Or you can contact me and actually have conversation human to human, right? If you want to do that, or feel free to come on this evening, and it'll be Q&A, and it'll be on Kofi_42. So not this one where it says KOFI_OFORI. Just add a number 2 to it if you want to follow there and get a notification when we come on live later this evening. But you can come on those platforms as well. All right. But basically, Washington, D.C., London, and the Vatican, all three don't belong to the countries that they're in. You might not know that, but once again, Washington is not a territory anymore, but it's subject to Congress. Congress has no authority outside of Washington, D.C., but Washington, D.C. was asked to give their land back a long time ago by Virginia. Hence, therefore, it's not a real territory, but it still has legal rights over you because you have signed agreement with the fake corporation. Go to London. London is not part of England by law. London does not bow down, right? The Queen, well, not the King. The King has certain rights and stuff like that, but London doesn't have to worry about the authority of the King like that. Doesn't have to, right? Right? London doesn't have to. London doesn't have to bow down. London doesn't have to bow down, right? You know why London doesn't have to bow down? London doesn't have to bow down because London is not part of it, right? London doesn't have to bow down because they're not part of England. London is not part of London, of England, right? And a lot of us, we just not aware of it. We don't know how this stuff works. We're not looking at this stuff correctly, and we're arguing over stuff that has, once again, has nothing to do with you. If you ever realize that a lot of this stuff has nothing to do with you, like, I promise you, this is going to get really easy for you. If you realize that you've been having arguments with people